across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum. It's me, Samara Gill. I'm in for Kevin O'Sullivan tonight. He is off wining and dining with his besties, Piers Morgan, other TV, radio personalities. He's taking a very rare night off, and I have been tasked with the Political Asylum, and we do always joke. Pete, who I've got in the studio, Pete Barnes, political strategist, that it is an asylum when it's us in this room. But strap in, because we've got some crazy stories for you tonight. We've got Seb Gorka joining us, Lila Cunningham. We're going to talk to Ahmed Yaqub, who's at the absolute centre of the Aston Villa scandal that continues to go on. But I'm really going to start off the show by just jumping in with this one in, one out scandal. What is going on? I mean, this is something that anyone probably could have told you would happen, but it's happened a lot quicker than I thought would actually happen. It's one migrant has returned back after being deported to France, claiming that they felt very unsafe in France, so they decided that they would come back to Britain because it's much safer here. I mean, this is the end of this scheme. This spells the absolute failure of it. Let's bring in Isabel Oakeshott. She's Talk's international editor. Isabel, thank you for joining us. What do you make of this? I mean, this is kind of, I wasn't expecting it a couple weeks after they've launched the scheme, that one would come back in.
Well, I mean, actually, they launched the scheme several months ago, but you could be forgiven for not having noticed that, because it's not as if there's been a mass exodus of migrants, is it, under the one in, one out scheme? We already have ludicrous figures of, what is it? I think we're up to 46 have gone out, and
yes.
You've probably got the latest figures on how many have come in, but it's many, many, many thousands. And, you know, when this scheme was launched, we journalists all asked the question, won't they just be able to come back again? And nobody said, don't be so ridiculous. Of course they won't. But of course, that's what the Home Office would never have wanted to believe, that they would just turn around and come back again. And sure enough, that's what's happened. I mean, the whole thing was beyond parody even before this happened. And now I just think the whole scheme is completely unsustainable. I mean, it's obviously a joke. It was a joke before we've got one in, one out, one in again. It completely brings it into hopeless disrepute.
You're completely right, Isabel. I mean, I feel like the only border that's watertight at the moment is the one at Downing Street, because nothing else is working. I mean, I want to bring Pete into this. Pete, what did you make of this whole situation? I mean, it's a total fiasco. Well, people are going off about this.
Yeah, I don't blame them. But if you ever needed proof that the government are idiots, I think this was proof of it. It was gifted on a plate. I mean, in what world did they think that they weren't going to try and get back in? When you roll out the red carpet, you provide everything for them. You give them a free dentist, free healthcare, a 5-star hotel. Of course they're going to try and come back, because everybody else would. I mean, like Isabel said, the writing was on the wall for this policy. It was just more of a napkin idea more at the best of it. But it's just ludicrous, because it is a government that is not willing to do the tough thing, that is dismantle the ECHR, dismantle the legal framework, and actually defend our borders. They're not willing to do it. They're not capable of doing it. So they're choosing to play with politics and play around the edges just to do enough for the next day's headlines. Well, unfortunately, it's not working, and it's Britain, it's people living in this country, taxpayers, that are suffering because of their ineptitude and incompetence.
No, you're completely right. I mean, the man said, if I had felt safe in France, I would have never returned to the UK. Well, I think that's just the point. Yeah. They do feel way too safe here. We've got all the benefits. We've got all the freebies. We have the 4-star hotels, some of which I was at during the weekend covering the protests. It is too safe here. It is too comfortable, and this should be evidence as to why. I mean, what would you say to the government right now, Isabel, if you were to come up with any sort of alternate plan, because they need one?
I mean, well, I've said it 1,000 times, and so have many other much more influential people than me. The only way this stops is if you either turn back the boats, so you don't escort them from the halfway line. You end the taxi service, basically, which we're putting huge taxpayer resources into. The French get them out to the midway line. We then pick them up and bring them to Britain. What kind of total insanity is that? So we end that. If we're going to go down the line of, we can't do that because of international treaties, which I don't accept, by the way, and we won't get into the different bits of the law that would allow you to do it, but they do exist, then you've got to detain immediately on arrival in the UK. At the moment, we don't detain for more than about 5 minutes before we then send to hotels from where people are free to disperse. I mean, this is completely mad. We lose control of them the minute that they're let out of Manston, the initial processing centre. It should be made clear that anyone who comes across the channel in this manner will never be allowed to establish a new life in the UK. And here's the other thing. We've got to not only stop giving money to the French, we've got to get the money back, because they are letting us down every step of the way. And we have squandered hundreds of millions of taxpayers' money. That's individual workers' money, people slaving away for rubbish wages in this country, and their taxes have been squandered on sending money to the French, who frankly really give very little care for where the migrants end up, as long as it's not staying in France.
No, you're completely right. And I mean, this plan that you've just outlined is basically what Australia did so successfully.
Absolutely.
We had a big boat issue. And, you know, the human rights lawyers, everyone was kicking and screaming when we put the foot down and said, no, if you come here illegally, you will not be offered any right to stay here. And do you know how long it took for the boats to stop after that? Just 1 week. Because that is the reason they come. They know that they'll get settled here. They're not fleeing particularly from anything, a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them do come from safe countries. They come from France, for Christ's sake. So you're right. I think it is about not being settled here when you arrive. That's the main thing, and that's clearly why this guy's come back in. I mean, communities down on the ground have really been affected. I'm not sure if we've got the video, but I did speak to a child who hadn't been going to school for 3 weeks because she felt so unsafe, didn't feel like going out of the house. I mean, I was speaking to mothers on the weekend. This was in Hillingdon, just near Heathrow, which seems to be the sort of epicenter of this sort of thing. Let's have a look at the clip now. Are you not going to school at the moment? What's happening there?
People are calling me racist at school for going to the marches, and they're calling me far right. But the thing is, I'm not far right. I respect everyone's cultures, their religion, where they come from and their background. I just want to be able to feel safe.
Well, there you go. I mean, these are basic human rights that this girl can't even fulfill in this country because of the influx. And Hillingdon really is at the epicenter of this thing, because there are genuinely 3 hotels surrounding her school, and there are migrants that have been loitering around. So it really does affect the community. I mean, I really do think that without getting these people at least into some sort of detention center where they can't go out and start mingling within the community would be a worthwhile precaution while we're waiting for someone to do anything about this. What do you think, Isabel?
Can I ask how old that little girl was?
12.
So, I mean, how has it come to pass that we have 12-year-olds in our country having to talk about the concept of being far right? I'm really, really uncomfortable with that. I find it weird. It's unsettling. You know, what has happened to childhood innocence that we've got 12-year-olds who are being fed this stuff? You know, of course a 12-year-old isn't far right, for goodness sake. You know, I'm yet to meet, I've got 3 children, roughly these types of ages. The idea that children are racist or far right is absolutely patently ridiculous. And I'm just sorry that this whole political disaster has infected our culture to that point that childhood innocence is being stripped away in so many different regards. No children should have to worry about groups of intimidating looking men leering around outside their school, whether they're white men, whatever their color they are. Children should not have that. And what has happened to our society in recent years is a disintegration of behavioural standards in public places. Now, that's not just a migrant thing, far from it. You know, I see it from all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, but it's ruining children's experiences, isn't it? And that's a tragedy. And you're absolutely right about the Australian model. It's actually something I know a fair bit about because I interviewed your then Prime Minister Tony Abbott.
Good old Tony. Yeah.
About what he did. And essentially, he did stop the boats. He didn't muck around. He made it very clear this is not going to continue. And if you come this way to our country, you will be turned back. And they get processed in miles away. Don't you, Samara? Somewhere called, is Nowra, an island miles.
Nauru. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but there's no mucking around. And that was the end of the problem. And actually, you know what? That's a bit of being cruel to be kind. You know, that actually has probably saved many lives.
100%. I mean, you'd think that he was the devil incarnate at the time when he was putting those restrictions in place. He was genuinely dragged through a sort of bed of nails by the public because they really thought our human rights, they're going to get taken away too. Oh my gosh. Well, no, you can go to Australia and it's a perfectly pleasant place, and dare I say a little bit more pleasant because you are not unsure of the immigration status of whoever you're speaking with or whoever you're seeing, because you know that they're not here illegally, because we do have that zero tolerance policy. And that helps with, this thing that Labour constantly talks about, community cohesion. When you know the status of someone who's there, you don't then have questions and feel unsafe. It's as simple as that, but they don't seem to understand it. And Pete, you look like you want to say something here.
Yes, no, 100%. Can I just say, Isabel, you are bang on. Why are kids having to get involved in this? But also, the thing I find most despicable is the concerns of parents are being dismissed and being painted as far right. When sending your kid becomes an act of courage and bravery, and there is ever any element of doubt, this country has failed. Sending your kid to school should not be an act of bravery. It should just be routine. That is what has collapsed. That is this social disintegration. That's where we've lost it. And the thing that makes Tony Abbott so much different than Keir Starmer is he's not a coward. He does not mind being the bad guy. We have a group of politicians running this country now who are terrified of Guardian columnists and bad headlines about them. They are running scared of it because they don't want to be branded racist. But Tony Abbott was brave. He put his country first, and then he followed it up and he backed it up his words with actions. That is the difference between the two leaders.
Well, he's got a backbone, and when these politicians don't do anything to stop the votes, what they're really doing is funding people trafficking organisations and thinking, it's fine when children and women die at sea, because that is what happens a lot. So it's actually not the human rights level to be saying we're not going to be doing anything to stop these boats. It's actually anti-human rights. So I just really do think that there's a very misguided strategy here with Labour, and I know Shabana Mahmood's come out and made comments about it, but we're really sick of the talk. I just don't think the Labour government will ever solve this issue. I mean, I'm yet to see any sort of glimmer of hope, and it's got to take probably another government to come in and sort it, someone with some backbone. And I mean, let's just see what happens with that. Isabel, is there anything you would kind of...
You know what? The one thing that does give me some hope is, I tell you, this is getting so serious, and I will be in due course bringing some evidence forward which will demonstrate just how serious this is getting. This is getting so serious on so many levels that I am not sure that the government can honestly continue not to solve it. I'm not talking about, for the politics of the Labour Party. I'm talking about national security.
Yes.
I'm talking about the overall state of our country, the disintegration of communities. This, I cannot overstate how serious this is now becoming. And I just don't see how it sustains for another 3 or 4 years. Then again, I think, the Prime Minister is Keir Starmer, and he's pretty keen on his human rights and international treaties.
Well, you're so right. It is turning into a national security issue. And Starmer, the one who is absolutely, I mean, half the time he's not even in the country. He's busy defending Ukraine's borders instead of our own, or whatever country he's interested in that week. It is a national security issue because we do see time and time again lots of different articles that have come out where we do see the description of whoever's committed that sexual assault or whoever's committed that even murder. There are some open cases going at the moment that do involve asylum seekers with really, really dodgy records. I mean, you've got to have some sort of gumption to get on a boat and try and escape whatever country you've been going from. And it's a specific type of person that we are importing. And I'd be very interested to see what you do find, Isabel, because you always do have fantastic findings and you're sort of revealing the truth about this crisis. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming on the show. That's Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Brilliant woman, always doing great work on this. I mean, I really don't see what they're going to do now. If we've got one person who's returned, that opens the floodgates for so many different others.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have no doubt that somebody has already snuck in that we don't know about. This is the thing. The numbers are the people that we know about. It's not necessarily everybody that has come back into the country. What's also really concerning, when we talk about this on the international level, Britain is being pushed off the world stage because we are seen as a laughingstock and we're not being taken seriously. And we're also not being trusted. That's a big one. You know, Britain is a leader in the Five Eyes organisation. We're a leading nation when it comes to intelligence. When our intelligence isn't in the room, bad things have the potential to happen, and it is because this government is seen as not credible, it is seen as not competent, and it is things like the migrant crisis which countries are screaming at Britain saying stop rolling out the red carpet, stop doing this, and Britain is just ignoring them, and that means we're being pushed out of the room, and that's not a good thing for anybody.
0344 499 1000 is the number. Get on the blower. Talk about anything you want to talk about, but specifically this story. There's a lot to get into. Do give me a call to express how you feel on that. I'd be very interested to know. After the break, oh my goodness, this is properly broken Britain. This is a male migrant posed as a female nurse for months. But get this.
Months?
Get this. Has he avoided prison or not? Find out after the break.
Do you think people expressing these views are a risk to patients?
I think you know what, we're going to see what the legal process is and whether this person's deemed to have broken the law. But I think when you see some of the language that's being used there, is that somebody who we want to be entrusting to support people of any faith or religion or denomination? I don't think it is. I don't think that you could assume that someone will get the same treatment if they happen to be Jewish from somebody who espouses views like that. So I think there is a concern. I think we're going to see where the police come to with their investigation and then take it from there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. The migrant Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, wow. This is a hell of a story. I mean, we always do complain about not getting help in the NHS or, you know, people not working, living off benefits, especially migrants. I mean, we've had 1.9 million migrants or foreign nationals are living off benefits in this country. 0344 499 1000 is the number if you want to give me a call about that. But this guy's actually kind of gone and done both. This guy, Lucius Nkotu, he's 33. He fraudulently used the name of an agency nurse called Joyce George to work a series of shifts for 2 months as a healthcare assistant at the Countess of Chester Hospital. Despite wearing the woman's NHS name badge, which has a photo of her, this Nigerian national was able to work in the role unsuspected. I mean, Pete, what is going on with our National Health Service?
Do you know, I saw this and I had to double check it wasn't some kind of like skit story, do you know, like from The Onion or something from back in the day?
Yeah.
Because it is that absurd. But then I remembered it's Britain, it's 2025, so of course it's real. It's absolutely ridiculous. But what made it the more lurid is the fact that he said, my name's Joyce, but I'm a man. And everybody went, okay,
yes,
that is the problem.
Yeah.
Nobody thought, because this is half of the problem, why he's kind of avoided all this, the courts said there had been no complaints, because nobody is brave enough to say that person isn't that person anymore. We have created a culture of fear where if you dare say the obvious, you could be accused of something and you could get in trouble for it. That is the danger of these the environment that we've created, where somebody can work in a healthcare environment. You know, he worked as a healthcare assistant, so had contact with patients, unqualified. You know, there's bureaucratic weakness. There's there's exam fraud in the nursing industry is out of control. By the way, there's 700. I think it's 700 cases within the midwifery system, basically,
yes,
that are all fraudulent.
Yeah,
it's absolutely insane that this problem is mainly coming from Nigeria and Ghana because we aren't checking qualifications because we either need the staff or we're looking the other way.
Well, it's
but
true.
All of it is concerning. Every aspect of this story, whilst it seems funny, is very concerning and deeply worrying about whether you can actually trust the doctor is actually a doctor now.
Well, it's when the truth becomes offensive, the lies become the policy.
Yes.
That's the issue there.
Yeah.
I mean, I do agree with you. You've hit the nail on the head with what is actually going on here, is that no one could clearly question him because I'm assuming that people had worked with Joyce George before.
Yes.
And I'm assuming he wasn't some random doppelganger. I mean, he must have looked quite different.
Just a tad.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But no one wanted to question that.
Exactly.
And it does also, it makes me think, how mismanaged is the NHS that, you know, we're having random strangers come in and pose as doctors. I mean, we're very lucky that no one was actually sort of assaulted or anything like that, because this could be used for very, very nefarious, nefarious qualities. I mean, the more, again, kind of crazy part of the story is that he's avoided prison. I mean, so he was sentenced to 16 weeks, but he was suspended for 12 months and then just ordered to complete sort of 80 hours of unpaid work and to pay a 239 quid fine. I mean, going private would be cheaper than
it would.
this
My
fine.
God.
So
I mean,
it would be more expensive.
when you wonder why this country's in the way that it is, this is why. There is no consequence of any meaning anymore. So these things, they just happen and then it gets worse and and then it gets worse, and then something terrible happens. This is the point. We have to start nipping in the bud these situations and coming down heavy when this happens, because this is putting people at risk. The migrant crisis is putting people at risk because we have allowed this everything to just slip away, these standards to drop, accountability to be non-existent. Everything is now so out of control that people are too terrified to say that that man with a 5 o'clock shadow isn't Joyce. It is a complete lunacy to me that we have got into this state, but we have to remember the NHS is one of the biggest proponents of the trans agenda in the UK. It is so in bed with these people, it is ridiculous. The Royal Obstetrics Society, which is just down the road from here, still to this day is arguing that the Supreme Court is wrong about the definition of a woman.
I know they are.
Bizarre to me.
The Darlington nurses, who I'm sure a lot of our audience is very familiar with, is still grappling with their case. There are still nurses who are not being acknowledged because they still won't. The NHS won't acknowledge now what the Supreme Court has said. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Can we just pause on that the statement? A state-controlled, taxpayer-funded body is ignoring the law.
Yeah.
That is what that statement actually is. It is ignoring a ruling from the highest court of this land that they get to do whatever they want because of the NHS. When we all joked about people clapping on hands over COVID and having a church service for its kind of anniversary, you've deified it. You've made it beyond reproach, and the people who work within it think that they are gods themselves. And this is when people get hurt.
Totally, Pete. Let's talk to Mandy in Felixstowe. What did you want to say, Mandy?
Good evening, Samara and Pete. I know a way of them stopping the migrants.
Yep.
Take the fishing rights away from France.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's not a bad call. Not a bad call. Let's look at what the EU were about to do to the steel industry over here. Do you know, this idea that the EU is some kind of best friend of ours is absolutely laughable. They were willing to decimate an industry that is vital to our national security. That is not the act of a friend. Let's stop playing hardball with an organisation that is not being very nice to us.
Well, the 500 million quid that we've given France, well over that now, well actually. I think it's more in the 800s. They clearly can't stop the asylum seekers coming back in. I mean, what was he doing running on the beach, getting back into the country? I mean, they're clearly not doing their job. I mean, taking the fishing rights away, that would be sort of Trump-esque slam down of a policy, but it would, which is something I would say that we probably need here. But I really doubt that Keir Starmer would go that far. I mean, if you just saw him sipping champagne with Macron at the state banquet a couple months ago, you'd think that relations between us were as flowery as ever.
Oh, yeah. It's ludicrous, because if you actually... The thing that really annoyed me about the one in, one out wasn't just the proposal, was the deal itself. France got everything in that, and we got nothing. You know, the level of checks and who gets to come here, who doesn't, was all in France's favour, because the French knew that Keir Starmer is over a barrel in this country. He has nowhere to hide. He's really struggling on this issue, so he could milk Britain for everything that he could get. Again, from French perspective, I don't blame them, but we have to start getting in the fight with these nations that, let's be real, they want rid of the migrants as much as we do.
Well, we all know that Starmer famously said, I'd prefer to be in Davos than Westminster. I mean, he's absolutely in with, first of all, the EU and sort of the globalist agenda in that way. I don't think he wants to sort of have very strict borders and be putting his flag down, so to speak, on our country instead of wanting to open the borders to everyone else. I mean, probably in his perfect world, he would like to be back in the EU and we'd all be, you know, shaking hands and not having to deal with whatever he thinks border control was the main thing that he was upset about, not being able to go on his EasyJet flight and have his, you know, his cheap trip to France.
That was always the most insulting thing, was the fact that sovereignty arguments were about queuing for airports. It's ridiculous.
Correct.
But Starmer has no concept of sovereignty because he doesn't believe in borders. He doesn't believe in countries. He believes in this kind of one world nation. So it's not really the conspiracy theory level of some of it, but this idea of states working together, of like big organizations, is just how he thinks about things. And unfortunately, it's not how the world works. And it's making Britain a less safe place, a less prosperous place. And unfortunately, it's why we've got a lot of very rich people leaving, and things are only going to get worse.
Mandy, great call. I think you're right, but is that going to happen? Probably a no. Let's see. 0344499 1000 is the number to call. We've got Chloe Dobbs next. She championed this fight against the Oxford Union president-elect, and she clearly has triumphed. We're going to talk to her after the break.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Jay Hughes says, good evening. This story about the healthcare worker parading as Joyce for a few months. Why don't you get Kelly J. Keane on the show? Yeah, I will, because honestly, she's right. And interestingly, Pete just brought me a little tidbit to that story.
An acquaintance over Twitter has just pointed out to me, and it was actually in The Sun 2 days ago, that the hospital where this person was, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, I'll go with Joyce, it seems safer, worked out was the same one where Lucy Letby was.
Ooh.
So one of the worst things you can ever have from a strategy PR point of view is a pattern of behaviour, because that is somebody in the chain making these decisions. So who is it? Why are they still hired, and what have they not done to fix the problem? Because this shows that there is a serious problem with the hiring practices of this hospital.
Pete, you might have to head that inquiry up.
Oh, God, not another one. I'm the only person left in Westminster that's not been asked to do the grooming gang thing.
Well, look, I feel like I've got almost a tiny bit of good news for you. We're going to talk to Chloe Dobbs, one of my all-round favourite people. She's also a political commentator at that, very popular on this channel. She's been leading the sort of charge for the removal of the Oxford Union president-elect. I think you guys will remember him. His name is George Abronier, and he's the person who sort of straight away put in the group chat, Charlie Kirk got shot, let's go. I mean, he's a really disgusting individual, and he's kind of at the heart of all this horrible, horrible sort of liberalism that Oxford has been captured by, but in a very, very dark and insidious way. Chloe, I want to bring you in to talk about this. Thank you for coming on the show.
No worries. Thank you for the impressive intro.
Well, you're an impressive lady. I mean, talk to me about this. What's been going on? So George has had a vote of no confidence, which I was quite frankly surprised by.
Yeah, so we had the vote of no confidence, and it took a very long time to get the result. It was absolute havoc in there. I have a friend who's an ex-returning officer who was inside that count, and he said it was the most hectic one that he has ever seen. And he's been at counts for over like the past decade, and many of them. And it went on. The polls closed at 8 p.m. on Saturday, and we only found out the news yesterday morning. You had 1,000 proxy votes and 800 and something votes in person. And proxy votes, most union elections votes are in person, because in a typical union election, a termly election, it's only really the students at the university at the time that really care about it and want to vote. But quite rightly, there were many Life members all across the country who desperately wanted to vote in this, because this was a national, or well, international scandal. We even had Americans like Elon Musk and Ted Cruz getting involved, tweeting about it.
Yeah, it's a really bad look for our country, isn't it? I mean, a university that used to supply us with some of the finest minds, now this is who they kind of let in.
I know this is absolutely shocking that this man was even let into the university, let alone able to rise to the position of Oxford Union president. But anyway, so they decided, the extraordinary returning officer decided to allow proxy votes, and you had people running around like headless chickens at the Thursday night debate before the vote, telling everybody that proxy votes are racist, and the only reason they've allowed proxy votes is so that they can remove a black man from power, because of course all of us are Life members. We're a bunch of evil, racist, far-right bigots. In their opinion, they've consequently now moved another motion of no confidence in the current president, Musa Haraj. That vote is going to take place tomorrow, so no doubt there'll be another long count, on the basis that they're blaming Musa, claiming he's the one that allowed the proxy votes, even though it's the extraordinary returning officer that decided that, on the basis that he's a racist, even though the guy is a Pakistani, he's a man of colour himself. So, I mean, it's typical activist student politics. It's crazy. And in that count where they had 1,000 proxy votes to go through, what we heard was that the count reps representing Georgia's team were causing absolute havoc, intimidating the returning officer ballots, heckling him, every single one of those proxy votes, trying to find a reason why it's invalid, and hence it was chaos. They suspended the count at one point. There were arguments being made by Georgia's team that the count was illegal and it needed to just be stopped and thrown out for a later date. They tried to just get rid of it. There had to be phone calls made to lawyers, but we finally got a result, and he lost pretty.
Hallelujah.
1,228 votes to get rid of him versus 501 to keep him. So quite a clear result, and you would think that he would accept that, being about 70% of the vote to get rid of him. But no, he is in denial. He's throwing a tantrum saying, I'm still the president, and of course he's appealed it, which now means we'll have to have a tribunal panel convened to go for... I mean, it just never ends.
This is reminding me of like the current Labour government. We always look at Oxford as a sort of microcosm for what Westminster could be in the future.
Well,
this
you
is
know
making
what?
me very depressed.
Christian Nemitz, who you may have heard of from the IEA, he tweeted in response to all of this madness, saying, just a warning, this is what Westminster will look like if you have the Green Party and the Zara Sultana Party running the show. We've already had a taste of that with the whole hoo-ha of who's running the party, Jeremy Corbyn or Zara Sultana, and all of that
yeah,
chaos.
you're right. And it's also, I mean, this is the same man who wants to cry racism, but he got very, very low grades. Was it an A and 2 Bs to get into Oxford?
Yes.
I mean, that's absolutely unheard of. It used to be 3 A stars that you had to get into that prestigious university. I mean, he really shouldn't be blaming it on that. I think it's all about his intellect and nothing about the colour of his skin, and also the way that he reacted to a father of 2 being shot in the neck and subsequently killed. That could also be a bit of an issue, and then how he doubled down on it. He's just a terrible person. It's genuinely nothing to do with that. I mean, I can see you shaking your head or nodding.
Nodding in agreement with both of you. Nodding in agreement with absolutely both of you. But what
Pete's here, by the way, Chloe.
Hi, Chloe. Nice to see you. What's really important in this story is the reflex to blaming race. That automatic kind of, it's because he's a black guy. You've done this because he's that. It is not the fact that the guy who is supposed to lead one of the most prestigious debating organisations in the world celebrated the death of a free speech activist. You know, it is not the words that he used that is the problem. It's the body he represents. That's what's really important about why he was not fit for that role. You know, we can talk about his academic references and all the rest of it, but he was not fit to have that position of such importance to free speech in the world for him to behave in that way. And Chloe, what you're describing there is going to be Westminster. It already is, to be honest. I mean, I'd spent most of my time there, and I'm 34 and look like this. It is absolutely astonishing, the parallels between what you're describing and just every day in Westminster now, because it is committee after committee after committee. It's extraordinary vote. It's this person did that. It is the student union on speed. It is astronomical, but it just doesn't surprise me. That's the sad thing about it.
Well, you seem like a total rarity, Chloe, because honestly, when I think about even the last couple of weeks, we had that terrible, terrible Oxford student who had workshopped a chant. You know, I laugh because if I didn't laugh, I would cry, about putting the Jews in the ground, death to all Jews. They then subsequently found firearms in his family home. I mean, is this the type of student that Oxford is producing? Did you experience it while you were there?
Yes, there's a lot of this craziness going on at Oxford, and it is really sad because I think that the Oxford admission system is actually very good in that the way that they interview people, they are looking for people who have brilliant critical thinking skills, who can engage with different and controversial ideas in a thoughtful and nuanced way. But what happens is that you get these smart kids come in, and then a bunch of them get captured by these activist student societies who then seem to throw all of that out the window, at least whilst they're outside of their tutorials, and they just revert back to crying racism and fascism whenever someone says something that they disagree with. And a few people are able to ruin it it for the rest of the students, because you just need a few people who you know will cancel you and launch a tirade against you and try to have you banned from every student society and have you put in every single student paper and called a racist if you say something slightly controversial. And the reason why that is so hard for university students is these are people who are about to apply for jobs. They are looking for graduate jobs and they are terrified of the prospect of having a bad Google search with their name. And that's why you have people like George that think that because they're a person of colour, they can get away with anything, because if they call someone racist and they get an article in them in the paper that says they're racist, that they will never get a job. But unluckily for George, I'm not scared of that. I get called a racist every day in this job, and I'm self-employed, so I'm not applying. I'm not applying for some job in finance. So I'm quite happy to attack him. And there are many old alumni who have been very vocal.
But you're not a racist, Chloe. You're not.
I know I'm not a racist.
Yeah, that's the funniest part.
This is a very common tactic in the student politics. Is we will try to call anyone a racist. You've also seen in the Oxford Union several cases of people making fake sexual assault and rape allegations in order to win an election against them. That can ruin someone's life and completely ruin their career.
Can I chime in on this
And they will do
point?
that just for power in the union, and that is vile.
Can I just chime in on this, because there's a really important case of Alexander Rogers, the 20-year-old who was at Corpus Christi, and he took his life because of the cancel culture on the university campus. He was ostracised, he was bullied, Chloe's exactly right. You know, his name was run through the university press. There is no standards there really of right of reply or any of that. And he took his own life because of it. This is a real cancer that is in the heart of our universities. And more importantly, it's in one of the top universities in the world. These people are going out all over the world to the top of our society. They're becoming our politicians, our lawyers, our corporate directors. That is why this stuff has to be rooted out so firmly in the universities.
And it circles all back around. Racist, fascist. Who did they call that? Charlie Kirk. They said that was who he was, and that then led to some very, very violent death cult type extremism from at least what we know from someone who was quite left-leaning. So this is the power of those words when you just bandy them about to anyone that you disagree with. And I think that the Charlie Kirk murder really, really showed what can be done when you sort of throw those insults away like that. Chloe, thank you so much for joining me on the show tonight. And I really appreciate. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting called, whatever. You know you're not. 0344 499 1000. What do you think of that? Should George have been removed? What do you think about our educational institutions? Are they all captured by left-leaning ideology? Is that going to be a problem for us in 20 years when these people start running organizations, like Pete said? I
Look
think
at the courts. The courts are your prime example. The reason we have so many lefty judges right now is because of the captured academy. So we're living through the first generation, the first wave, if you like, of this kind of infected woke society. This is the point. It's backed up and it's backed up and it's backed up. So you can get rid of it in the law, but unless you get rid of it in the culture, it's always going to be around. And that's why taking back control of the universities is beyond important.
Well, we're fighting back against it here at Talk. If you want to have your say, 0344 499 1000 is the number, or shoot me a text. I'm going to take calls next. See you then.
Do you think people expressing these views are a risk to patients?
I think you know what, we're going to see what the legal process is and whether this person's deemed to have broken the law. But I think when you see some of the language that's being used there, is that somebody who we want to be entrusting to support people of any faith or religion or denomination? I don't think it is. I don't think that you could assume that someone will get the same treatment if they happen to be Jewish from somebody who espouses views like that. So I think there is a concern. I think we're going to see where the police come to with their investigation and then take it from there.
I remember talking to Matt Hancock at the time, who was
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm going to go straight to your calls because we've got quite a few of them coming in. People very passionate about some of the topics that we've covered already. Georgina in London, one of my favourite people on this station. You basically should be a co-presenter at this point. Georgina, what did you have to say?
Good evening, Samara. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
I've got a few things I want to say. I'm going to get it off my chest and then I'm going to get it out of your hair.
Go on.
We are in a time, Samara, of moral cowardice where both our government and governmental bodies are concerned. Rather than call out the migrants for their behavioural standards, or indeed the Pakistani Muslim men for theirs, they'd rather call us racist, Islamophobic or far right. They're terrified of causing offence or alienating themselves from their own so important Muslim vote that they are so afraid and of any kind of Muslim uprising. There's no community cohesion with these people, Samara. And our women and children shouldn't have to run the gauntlet every time they leave the house. The Labour government have neither the stomach nor the backbone to tackle this problem. But the seriousness of the migrant population and the problem is now a serious national security problem, and the safety of our population is now at critical level. The government need now to put their personal race for re-election via the Muslim vote to one side and do something that seems to be totally alien to them, and that's by putting the well-being of our country and its people first. The people of our United Kingdom are at their very last nerve with the lies, the gaslighting, and the deflection when they're asked questions. We deserve transparency, accountability and action. Action not for the benefit of the Labour government, Samara, which is what we've been witnessing so far, but for the benefit and the safety of our country and the British people. And until we get that, we will remain undefended, unheard, and under attack within our own country. We should be prioritised, and we and our country now demand protection and action.
You're so right, Georgina.
If I could clap and give you a round of applause and you would hear it, I would give you it, Georgina. You are 100% bang on. But can I just add one extra thing? Yeah. I actually think there's something else going at play here. I actually think this is a lot of people who know that they did a very bad thing and have unleashed this on the nation and need to continue to have that idea that they're the good guys. It is this. They are suddenly confronted with the consequence of their actions, and they are suddenly realizing that, oh, wait a minute, the people that we said were the bad guys were actually the good guys, and we're the bad guys. They can't have that in their heads. So it's why you saw the kind of overreaction with adolescents. You know, it was going after this kind of thing because they turned their backs on 200,000 girls who were raped by Pakistani rape gangs. They had to focus on something else because they have to be the good guys, because they have it in their minds that their politics has to be the right politics because they're the good people.
Of course.
This idea of morality and politics have been bashed together in their heads in a very unhealthy way, and the consequences are in the face, and that's that's why we're saying, I don't think it's to do with votes, really. But I actually think it's to do with a lot of people not wanting to see the blood of, the speck of blood on their hand, the Lady Macbeth moment.
Well, exactly. I mean, it reminds me of Southport, and
yes.
not to say that was an asylum seeker, but obviously Axel Rudikwana's parents came here as Rwandan refugees from the genocide and things like that. And you do think, why is the government hiding? Why did they hide that information from us? Why do they continue to hide a lot of information from us about ethnicities of people, immigration status of specific murderers, rapists? Why do they do that? Because you're right, they don't want to admit how wrong they were to have these open border policies for the last, I don't know, I guess since Blair, I would say,
realistically.
to pinpoint it. I mean, Georgina, you make a really good point. When I was down in Hillingdon over the weekend with that community, I was on that march for about 5 hours. All I heard from was concerned parents and them being denied real basics, like, I want my child to be able to walk to school. I can't provide for my child. I can only give them 1 meal a day at the moment because we're so skint. But these migrants here are getting 3 meals a day in the hotel across the road. And that's where you start to really have a chasm and you start to think, okay, community cohesion, that's not going to happen. But you're right, Labour doesn't want to confront that truth. They want to think that we all just want to hold hands and be super respectful to each other. And of course we want to be respectful, but we're not going to get to that point when we ourselves are struggling. And there are people across the road that are living off our taxpayer dollars in luxury. I mean, it's as simple
common
as
sense.
that.
Like, I know we're at the home of common sense, but it is literal common sense, because the thing that really matters is when the public it's find out. It is that phrase that the public found something out. We shouldn't have to find out what's going on with our money, where our money is going. You know, Margaret Thatcher always said that the British taxpayer money was sacrosanct. You had to be honest with where it was going and you had to be prudent with it. Unfortunately, the Labour parties, and I would say the last Conservative governments as well, had this idea that we can't tell the public. We can't trust the public. That narrative has broken down any amount of trust that I think could be regained within, 20, 30 years realistically, at least a couple of parliamentary cycles. I mean, this narrative, it's still existing. It's why you've got the chaos with the grooming gangs. It's why we have this nonsense with this fake nurse and all the rest of it. It's because the truth is dangerous to the government. And that's why you need digital IDs, because then you can control who has access to what.
Well, I'll tell you what's probably not the truth, the bathtub baptisms that have been going on. I did just briefly want to mention this. I know we mentioned it on the show yesterday, or Kev mentioned it, but there are a lot of bathtub baptisms going on in these asylum seeker hotels that do sort of blend the truth a little bit, because even the acid killer, I don't know if many people remember, but the guy who started throwing acid at people, he was an asylum seeker who baptized himself in one of these ordeals. He ended up having an Islamic funeral. So we start to then really think, where is the truth here with a lot of these applications and a lot of these men? And it goes back into people feeling really unsafe because they don't know who these people are. So, Georgina, thank you for calling. You make a really, really good point. Let's go to Chris in Epsom. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Samara. We've never spoken. I've spoken to all of the presenters on Talk, and Peter will know my voice as well.
Oh, I know you well, Chris. How are you?
You're doing a great job, Samara, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
There's a few things I want to say. First of all, the detail of the one in, one out. So we get one out and we get one in. But the first one that comes in comes with his wife and child. Now, they are already vetted, so they get immediate, indefinite leave to remain, and so housing and benefits are open to them. And the one we send back to France, we have to pay for his food and accommodation. I don't know if you do that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ludicrous. It's not even a smoke screen. Now, let's go a little further. I used to think, I was of the opinion that Starmer and his crew were just a bunch of idiots. But actually, now, with the things that are happening, the things that he's saying, how he's trying to play the world stage, sending a general and some advisors to Gaza. I mean, this guy is just playing on the international stage. What really made me turn away from thinking he was just a lying idiot, and I mean that, a liar, because he lied to the farmers that he wasn't going to tax them. He lied to the waspy women. He wasn't going to take away the heating benefit because it was going to kill 4,000 pensioners. He lied.
He's a Class A liar. I mean, I have no issue saying that on national radio because there are many provable things to say that.
The worst isn't the lying, it's the gaslighting. Right. That's the more perverse bit, because he's telling you what you're seeing isn't what you're seeing. And if you are seeing that, you're a bad person, you're far right, you're racist, you're this, you're that. It is the way that he's trying to manipulate the truth, not just the barefaced lies. It is the way that he's trying to make you believe something that you know is objectively not true. That is so dangerous to come from a prime minister. You can't really quantify it. It's something that used to happen in Eastern Europe. You know, it didn't happen in Britain.
That seems to be where he's getting a lot of his policies from.
Exactly.
Some sort of Eastern European dictator that, gaslights their own people into believing a load of crap that simply doesn't add up. And the British people won't take it because they're actually not stupid and they won't put up with it for much longer, it seems. I mean, that's from what I can see in all the polls. After the break, we'll be talking to Peter Bleksley, we'll be talking to Layla Cunningham from Reform UK, and many others. We'll also be talking to a grooming gang survivor at 9 p.m. That's going to be a really gripping interview. Chris, thank you so much for chatting with me. Pete will stay with us. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Political Asylum with me, Samara Gill. Kevin O'Sullivan will be back tomorrow. Don't you worry. He's just off whining and dining with his journalistic friends, Piers Morgan, everyone else who would be at Piers's book launch. I mean, Piers has got a new book out, Woke is Dead, and I think Kevin's gone over there, but he's been trashing it for the past couple of weeks, so I don't know what he's been trashing it on air. He did segments saying, woke isn't dead, and I do believe with what Kev said, actually. Woke is not dead over here in the United Kingdom. It is probably dead over in the US, and I think that's probably what Piers was referring to. And we are going to actually go over to the US and talk to someone within the White House in just about half an hour. That's Seb Gorka. He's working very closely with Trump on eradicating jihad and extreme Islamism from the US. I wish we could have some of that over here. Let me cross over, though, to our 8 o'clock guest. It's Peter Bleksley. Peter, welcome to the show. Long time no see.
Good evening.
Evening. Oh my gosh, there's a lot to get into here. I wanted to kind of start off on a bit of a ludicrous story. Someone's been fined £150 for pouring coffee down a drain. This woman, she did that. I mean, police state?
Oh, it's absolutely appalling. But she wasn't fined by police officers, let me make that clear. She was fined by local employees of Richmond Council. And I've fallen foul of these type of people only too recently. But the appalling thing about this story is that they displayed no common sense. They showed no discretion towards this woman, who is otherwise a perfectly law-abiding citizen, and she pours the last dregs of her cup of coffee down the drain and gets fined. Well, the council have had so much bad publicity about it today, and rightfully so, that they've set the fine aside. Unlike when I came out of Waterloo train station a few months ago. I've been on quite a long train journey, and I am a foolish smoker. Don't smoke, kids. It's smelly, expensive, antisocial, and kills you. Anyway, I came out of Waterloo station, so I need a cigarette because I'm addicted. I spark it up, I smoke it, and as I start getting towards the end of it, I look for a bin so that I can stub it out and put the cigarette butt in the bin. I can't find a bin. I go down an alleyway, I go down an underpass, I look up and down the street, I still can't find one. I finish the cigarette, and what I can see is a drain cover. So I think, well, next best thing, and I put my cigarette down a drain cover. Out of the shadows.
How dare you?
Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, crime of the century, isn't it, really? Knock me up and throw away the key.
Well, in this country, yeah.
Quite clearly. Out of the shadows comes from Lambeth Council, Mr. Enforcement Officer, with, of course, his body cam on, just in case I give him any abuse, which I wouldn't. And he writes me an on-the-spot fine, which I paid early, and it cost me £100. I cannot begin to tell you how much trouble I got into from my wife when I got home that evening.
Well, that's a lot of cocktails or quite a nice pair of shoes. Or £100 it's no insignificant amount of money. I mean, this is sort of leads me into the nanny state that I do feel like Britain is becoming. And then people do wonder, oh, why is there so much pushback on digital IDs? Well, this is actually why, because when you start finding people for stuff like that, I mean, what are you going to kind of go down? I mean, if we were a totalitarian state that everything was in order, there was no crime on the streets, you know, you could eat a meal off the pavement, maybe I'd be like, okay, this is how this place operates. Maybe somewhere like a Singapore or a UAE where there's some extremely harsh sentences for menial things. But this is Britain, and we are absolutely crime-ridden at the moment. You've got stabbings going on left, right and centre. 80,000 phones swiped in the capital city last year. And now this is what they're coming after people for? It defies all odds, Peter.
It really does. They're just trying to raise money. It's a revenue stream for them. So I bet these people that are doing this job are not very well paid, and consequently they're pushed out there, probably with some kind of this incentive scheme. Go and catch as many cigarette smokers or people pouring coffee down the drain that you possibly can. Now look, if this lady had been pouring waste oil because she was a car mechanic down the drain, I'd get it. Fine them heavily. But the dregs of a coffee cup, and of course, these are establishment people, aren't they? They're wearing uniforms. They work for the local council.
Yeah.
They are very much, clearly, not on our side. And it's just yet another symptom of the low trust society that Britain is rapidly becoming, them and us.
You're completely right. And it's very interesting how all our resources have been pushed into that sort of thing. I mean, yes, it wasn't a police officer who fined her, but it was a member of the community. And I do want to move on to something a bit darker, but it kind of shows how the real villains, the real criminals, aren't actually being held to account while these fines are going on in the streets of Kew. I mean, the grooming gang inquiry. Now, this is an absolute shambles for the government. We've had Jim Gamble today. He was meant to be one of the chairs of it. He's also stepped down. We've had 4 other actual grooming gangs victims who were on the panel stepping down for various reasons, saying that they feel like they've been pushed to their limit by this council and made to say things and do things that they didn't want to do, which is pretty horrendous, thinking that they are victims of grooming gangs in the first place. This seems like sort of they've been re-traumatized. I know a lot of them have said this. We're actually going to speak to one at 9 p.m. What's your take on this? I mean, there's a lot of people that still haven't been held responsible. A lot of police officers, a lot of community leaders, social workers, they're still out there while this stuff is going on, Peter.
None of them have been held responsible. And some of those police officers that shamefully looked the other way and tried to convince anybody that there was nothing to see here all those years ago when these scandals first came to light are now retired, enjoying their pensions, probably on the golf course. And they've not been held to account. In fact, only a few weeks ago, the Independent Office of Police Conduct, which is a truly lamentable, pathetic organisation that is not fit for purpose, did an inquiry into one of these child rape gangs, and they were supposed to look at the police officers involved. And they said, well, we weren't actually looking for criminality committed by police officers, but we didn't find any evidence of it anyway. Well, if you weren't looking for it, how could you say whether it was there or not? Pathetic. It's an establishment cover-up. Those girls, who are, many of them who are now women, have been failed and failed and failed and failed time and time and time again. And it is absolutely appalling. And once again, the establishment is letting them down. I personally think that the establishment, in particular this government, and of course they were failed under other governments as well, but I think this government thinks more about votes than it does about victims, or else it would have got a grip on this.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Peter. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic. We know for a fact that this was going on because a lot of police officers didn't want to be accused of racism. Those are just the facts of what had happened. We know that there was a cabal of men working around the clock in order to ensure that they got away with this, and questions of racism, etc., could be, pulled up. This is why it went on and on and on. And what's interesting about this grooming gang scandal and now the inquiry is that one of the grooming gangs victims that we spoke to last night, that Kev spoke to last night, said that she was being pressed on the definition of who her abuser was, and sort of being cajoled into saying that it wasn't someone who was an Asian man of Pakistani descent, when we know that those were the majority of people that was, that actually had something to do with it and were the perpetrators of these crimes. So it really, really irks me. I mean, I know it's a trivial thing to talk about someone pouring their coffee down the drain, but it is this woke policing that then has actual really, really, really horrendous long-term effects. I mean, Pete, Pete Barnes is here. Pete, I can see you wanting to get a word in.
Yeah.
What do you think of this situation?
I'm on complete same page as Peter Blexley. I think he's absolutely spot on. There's also the fact that this is actually a consequence of net zero policies. The council will have targets to hit in terms of their environment enforcement. Otherwise, they might not get the same amount of money.
Without the coffee thing,
without
right?
the coffee thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, what's really important, the woman was trying to do the right thing. She didn't want to leave the coffee cup on the bus. Peter was trying to do the right thing by trying to find a bin. They found an alternative that, rightly or wrongly, whatever you want to argue with it, but they were trying to do the right thing and they were punished for it. Yet we have people who are breaking the law brazenly and they get off scot-free. When people wonder what the next issue at the next general election is going to be, it's got to be about fairness, because that doesn't exist in Britain anymore. This country is not fair anymore. One group is getting privileges and the other one is getting all the consequences, and that's got to stop. It really does. And right across this stuff, one thing I will say on the grooming gangs, we have to stop saying West Yorkshire Police. Start naming names. Institutions are letterheads and street addresses. Institutions are actually people. They're decision makers. Who made the decisions? Who knew what when and why didn't they act? That is what the public need to know. That is how you bring accountability back into it. We have to stop this kind of broad generalizations where we have to start naming people, because that's how we get justice. That's how you stop it happening again. You come down hard on the people that looked the other way. We keep using these kind of broad terms and these kind of vague generalizations, and that is how these people will get away with the cover-up. We have a responsibility to start naming who these people were.
No, you're totally right. And that's kind of my issue, to be honest, with inquiries in general. I mean, the left loves an inquiry. They love to spend 6 years trying to find, I mean, Tories did it too, trying to find out why things happened, how they couldn't happen again, definitions, all that, you know, wording, this and all. It actually shouldn't be like that. I feel like we should be going into these communities and we should be trying to prosecute these people. What do you think, Peter?
Well, public inquiries are often a very good way of kicking stuff into the long grass, because by the time they actually publish their findings, years and years and years have passed between the events that originally outraged people and started the calls for these inquiries. But there's a positive here, a small positive. The National Crime Agency are still investigating many of these child rape gangs. Let's call them what they are, child rape gangs. And they are making arrests and they are securing convictions, but they've got an awful lot to do and they need to be given the resources. We've had the pathetic Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police this week finally admitting that there are child rape gangs in London, but in order to investigate them all would take millions and millions and millions of pounds. It's almost like he's trying to get his pathetic excuse in first for the police actually not doing their job. Can we all as a nation get a grip here? We're talking about kids, children being raped repeatedly by gangs. It is right up there with the very serious of criminality that could be committed. And it's a dark, dark stain on this nation that it's ongoing. It's pathetic and a stain on the establishment that they can't set up a suitable inquiry thus far. And something really has to be done, because yet again, it's me talking about low trust society. And when you have a completely low trust society, very, very bad things happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Peter. And one thing I would also just add on to that is something me and you discussed, Samara, and that was actually the people that lead the inquiries need to be backed up. We saw this with the kind of the race inquiry with Sir Trevor Phillips. He was stripped of honorary title. He was stripped of everything. His career was ruined because he came up with the answer the establishment didn't like. The media turned on him. Civil society turned on him. The academic institutions turned on him because he broke ranks. That has to stop. We cannot change anything in this country if the people who are put in charge of these institutions, these inquiries, have to think twice about whether they can publish what the results actually find. We will never get to the truth if we don't allow the truth to come out. And that is my big fear. It's why I don't like national inquiries. We also need to make it statutory to have a time limit to implement the recommendations. How we can still have the previous inquiry yet to be fully implemented is a criminal offence in itself, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, exactly. That's precisely why all these victims have dropped out, because they've said they were pushing me into saying things that I didn't want to say, and they were wanting a certain answer, and I wasn't giving it to them. And it's just sort of like this 2.0 of whatever's been going on here. I mean, when you're right about the international world stage and how we look as a nation and how egregious it really is, because if you actually think about this inquiry that we're currently talking about now, I think it only pretty much happened because of Elon Musk. This is why it actually went forward. When you think about it, Keir Starmer was on the lectern saying, no, we don't need another inquiry, we don't need one. And then after all the pressure was put down on him, he then came to play. But it's just ridiculous. This Labour government, they don't want to hear the answers of the screams and cries of working class girls, and that is what it comes down to, and they're too scared to admit it. Peter, final word on this one?
And in furtherance of that, why were they so reluctant? Why has it not been implemented effectively? Because the Labour Party, for many of its votes, in order to get its MPs into Parliament, relies upon the block vote from brown minority faces that are grouped together in places like Rochdale, Oldham, and other places, and in London. They rely on those votes to get their MPs and their mayors elected. And I think their cowardice prevents them from really going in and telling the clear, absolute, honest truth.
And I think you're completely right, but I also think it's even demeaning that Labour does block voters like that, because I know a lot of people, you know, Muslims, etc., that wouldn't put up with this in their own countries or in their own families and towns. I think that, you know, they're being done a disservice by even being put into that category too, but Labour obviously always tends to do that because they always think of voters in certain blocks. So I think there's a bunch of issues here, and I think that they can't get their own house in order, and they're blaming everyone else as per usual. Peter Blakeslee, you're an absolute legend. I wish you had something to do with this inquiry, and you and Maggie Oliver were sort of at the forefront of it. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Baroness Casey as well. I don't want anybody but Baroness Casey running it. She's the only one to stand in front of a select committee of MPs and say, this is the truth. That woman is a hero in this country, and she should be given every honour and every title and everything.
Well, she's been doing she's been done a great injustice actually right now, because they haven't been able to go forward with it. It looks like it doesn't have an end. We're going to be joined with one of your favourites as a station, Layla Cunningham. She's an absolute superstar, and she's going to be with us right after the break. Stay tuned.
It's always emotion for her, isn't it? And
it is.
And there's a certain arrogance there. There's a certain, how dare you question me? I've campaigned on this issue for many years. Who do you think you are attitude?
I wouldn't be surprised if many of her colleagues actually do begin to think that, you know, I'm not saying she shouldn't go into another job or something, but certainly I think she's been in that now and has obviously lost all respect of those victims who are most important in this.
At the end of the day, they are the only people who matter.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Wow, London has also got a grooming gangs problem, and it was really interesting. We had John Wedger, who was he's a former copper. We had him on the show just a couple nights ago, and he was basically confirming stuff that would really bring Sadiq Khan down on his knees to actually do something about this, or just step off the block and give London a proper go at being a great city once again. Let's have a look at what John said.
Told me that Sadiq Khan's claims that there was no rape gang problem in London were basically a crock of crap.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the Daily Express has teamed up with the My London website. They've done an investigation which has established that young girls are being raped in hotels by men, mainly of Pakistani origin, Muslim men of Pakistani origin. So the same syndrome we've seen all over the country. So they're saying that Mayor Khan either literally does not know the truth, or he's absolutely flat out lying. I know what some of his political opponents believe, but let's give him the credit for, give him the sort of benefit of the doubt. Let's just say he doesn't know about it. But reiterate for us, John, what it is that Sadiq Khan needs to know that is going on in the capital city here.
Well, it's shameful that it takes the Daily Express to bring to the front something that really is very much in the public interest. And again, the age groups, I did read the report, 17 down to 12 years old. And this is going on. And it just goes to show when I was sort of removed from that post in the early 2000s, nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed seems to be the ethnicity of those doing it. It's the same algorithm all the time. And,
well, speaking to us now is someone who absolutely has a no-nonsense approach to this stuff. It's Layla Cunningham. She's a Reform UK Westminster councillor. Layla, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks.
This is shambolic. I was reading some horrific accounts. I was actually talking to John behind the scenes that day, and he said that it took him only 50 minutes to find 3 girls being pimped out on the streets of London, all underage, all potentially being groomed, some by pimps that were operating in London at fancy Mayfair restaurants, down to being pimped out to builders. Also, I mean, the details were really skin-crawling. What do you make of this? And should Sadiq Khan be held accountable?
Well, yeah, because Sadiq Khan and the Met repeatedly said there were no grooming gangs, but as you say, their own documents, the same ones that Sadiq responded to, describe the exact similar pattern that we saw in other areas such as Rochdale and Telford. I mean, like you say, the evidence is there in black and white. Girls as young as 12 raped in London hotels by groups of men, plied with alcohol, drugs, threatened, ignored. And the mayor read those reports, and he publicly responded that there was no indication of grooming gangs. That's not ignorance, that is a denial.
You're completely right, and it's absolutely sickening. But Sadiq Khan's really good at constantly denying things, gaslighting the public, making sure that, none of his voter base is sectioned off or upset. I mean, do you think this is about appeasing his voter base, or do you think this is something even darker than that?
I don't think there is anything darker than covering up this horrific child sexual abuse under his nose. I think that that's as dark as it gets. Now even the Met Commissioner has admitted that there is a steady flow of live offender cases. So on the one hand, they said there was nothing, and now there's a steady flow of live offender cases when pushed. And I'm sorry, but leadership means telling the truth, not protecting gang rapists or playing word games. And the girls deserve justice, and we deserve transparency. We don't want, I mean, it obviously is another establishment cover-up, but we can't let it go on. Because, Samara, when a child under 18 is manipulated, coerced, or forced into sexual activity, that is grooming gangs. He likes to call it something else, they hide behind new terminology such as child sexual exploitation. But the end is the same horrific, sickening outcome for the girls.
No, completely. And yes, it's going across the country, but we spoke to a victim even last night on this show, and she said, no, it's happening in London. London is a major city. It is actually the epicenter a lot of this stuff, for a lot of this stuff, because it goes completely unchecked. And it is quite horrendous, a lot of the details that have come out. And the fact that Sadiq just absolutely doesn't want to admit it is madness. I mean, Mark Rowley saying that it will take millions of pounds to get to the bottom of this. I mean, they're quite happy to press people for ULEZ, you know, to make sure that they're slammed with fines and taxes every single day. So clearly we've got money coming in for this, but they don't want to fund it. That really, really gets to me. And I think you always make this really good point, Layla, about the fact that, yes, Sadiq can show that he can be hardline when it comes to things like policing what type of car you drive in London. But when it comes to getting your phone swiped or you getting stabbed on the tube, he doesn't care too much about that. I mean, how much longer can London go on with a mayor like this? And what type of reforms would you make to it if you were sort of in charge or had some power in that capacity?
Well, because we have a mayor that's actively deprioritised and continues to deprioritise public safety. He's cut all visible policing. He's cut stop and search. And so when there's no one there to deter crime, it thrives. And that's what you're seeing now. He's cutting police from the royal parks. He's cut half public counters, police counters, despite a manifesto pledge that he wouldn't. So many police stations have closed. So, you know, if you are in the process, if you're unlucky enough to be a victim of crime, you can't run to a police station anymore like I could when I was little. And, you know, I believe that the reports say that a lot of it was in Tower Hamlets. Some of it was in Tower Hamlets, which is a strong base. So, you know, let's not beat around the bush. Labour have covered this up previously to protect a voter base, and one has to assume that Khan is doing the same, and it's absolutely sickening.
Yeah, his sickening when he got questioned in the London Assembly with Susan Hall, who's actually on later on this show to discuss that. I mean, it really, really irks me that he wants to sort of dance around the definition. And a lot of these victims are coming out and saying that's the issue there. Labour was pressuring me into making a different definition of my perpetrator. And I think that it comes down to votes, unfortunately, for this craven Labour Party. And it is horrible that they would put votes above the actual safety of the women and girls of this country. I mean, I did want to just quickly discuss one thing with you, because Sadiq Khan does love to say, you know, fascist, racist, whoever disagrees with me. And he's called Trump a fascist and a racist for going after him about the state of London. But Sadiq Khan would very happily have digital IDs introduced. Now, you've been very vocal about your hatred for this proposed scheme. They're saying now that because of all the public backlash, especially probably you speaking out about it on X, I've seen you touting that it would not work. They seem to be backtracking on this. Do you think they'll go ahead with the digital ID scheme?
Well, they're bringing it in through the back door. So they're trying to bring it in for veterans under the guise that it will be easier for them to identify who they are. They're trying to force directors to have a digital ID. And I think the way they're doing it is that they're targeting different groups with eventually the aim of having the whole country, because they've seen that a nationwide imposition of digital ID won't work. So now they're going to go group by group. And I tell every group out there, say no, because what digital ID means is that every right that you have now as a citizen will become a privilege, depending on you conforming, depending on you behaving according to the government. We saw it in Canada, and we'll see it here. There's no difference. There is absolutely no need for us to have a digital ID here.
No, completely right. And Robert Jenrick said that he wants to ban the burqa today. I mean, I'm in favour of banning all face coverings and making sure that at least, you know, there's some public visibility, especially in an unsafe city like London. I mean, would you be behind that? Would you be behind what Robert Jenrick's saying? I mean, he's a little late to the party, I must say.
Listen, I absolutely hate the burqa. It represents oppression. It doesn't represent an open society. There's absolutely no reason to hide your face. And I would love to ban the burqa. I would love to ban all face coverings, because there is a problem. If you're hiding your face, I don't know what you're up to. And it's very difficult to identify someone in a criminal matter if you can't identify their face. The only setback I have is I don't want a government that bans what you wear, because it might be the burqa one day, it might be face coverings another day.
Yeah.
What if it's a crucifix the next day? What if it's a no MAGA hats.
Star of David, it's looking like.
Star of David, you know, because it causes tension in a Muslim area. And that is why, personally, I would love to ban the burqa. I don't like it. A lot of Middle Eastern countries have actually banned it. In Tunisia, you can't wear it and you don't see it for obvious reasons. And I know that a lot of European countries have, but I do find European countries are more draconian than we are. So personally, I would love to ban the burqa. And if it came to Parliament, I would vote for it. But I have an issue with the government telling people what they can and cannot wear, and whether they'll take it a step further, especially with this authoritarian government that we have.
Well, you're completely right. I mean, it's my issue would be giving the power of digital ID, the power of banning things to a Labour government like this, because they clearly tend to get very trigger happy with these sort of policies. And then who knows where they'll end, because they have this student politic way of operating where they believe, you know, their stance is correct. I mean, Layla, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on the show. That's Layla Cunningham, Reform UK Westminster councillor, absolute superstar of the Reform Party. What she says makes a lot of sense to me, Pete.
Yes, the one thing I would also pick up on is digital ID have just been approved for new driving licences. Right. So what that means is, Layla's perfectly bang on. This is actually, if you were actually going to bring this in, this is how you would do it. You'd normalise it in a younger population, so that when you add something to it, it's not that big of a leap. So it seems really draconian now to a generation that doesn't have it. If you're part of a generation that's always had a smartphone, that's had everything on your phone, this is just normal. And that's the nefarious
like how
way.
Apple Pay doesn't feel like spending any money.
That's exactly the point. Is it doesn't feel like you're handing over cash. It doesn't feel like you're being tracked. It's just a thing on your phone. But this is the danger of it, and it is your bang on. It is setting the precedent that terrifies me more, because you know, first it's digital ID just for working, for driving licenses. Then it's this. Then it's that. Then it's that. It isn't. I refuse to call it slow creep. This is mission aim. This is the point of it. It's not. It's not. People keep calling it, oh, it's this creeping thing. It's not. This is ploughing straight ahead, and they like bull in a china shop with the consequences.
You're so right. And I just, what do you guys think? Digital ID, yes or no? And I feel like I might know the answer to a lot of our listeners for that question. But would you want it? Would it make your life easier? Maybe if you're a veteran, it would. I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I don't want this government knowing any information about me, quite frankly, because they do really abuse that power. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Give me a call about that. After the break, we're going to go over to the US and speak to Seb Gorka, who's doing many good things with Trump over in the States. Couldn't say the same about here. See you then.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Political Asylum on Talk, the home of common sense. Let's take some calls. We've got Richard in Belfast. Richard, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Samara, and very good evening, Pete.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Pete, I am actually glad that you're on one of the shows that I've actually got through to, because I've said to Ash and Andre on a few occasions, I have listened to many political commentators over the years. I'm old enough, unfortunately, David Dimbleby, Robin Day, John Cole, and I think you're one of the best political commentators I've ever heard.
That's very kind of you. The first of esteemed company there. Thank you very much. It's very kind.
So, but what I wanted to say, Pete, I think you've got it slightly wrong tonight, and I'll tell you why.
Go.
I do think it was about votes.
Yeah.
And I do think, I know the Tories were in power, but I do believe that some politicians within the Labour Party decided to ignore what was going on in order to garner votes from that collective area.
Yeah, so I do think there is an element of it, but what I will say is I actually think this is more about the establishment protecting itself. This is more about the civil service. This is more about local authorities. This is more about the people who aren't elected but operate within the political sphere, wanting to not set a precedent of going after them and not the politicians. That's the thing with this inquiry, is it's not necessarily the MPs that would actually come under scrutiny. It is everybody else. And that's not normally what happens with these things. If you look at the COVID thing, they're not really going after the doctors and nurses. They're going after the politicians who made the decisions. These decisions were made by the civil service, and they don't like that. Look at the Peter Mandelson example. They're doing everything in their power to stop the precedent of changing how you sack somebody. That is why he's still getting paid. It is about the protection of the blob, as Donald Trump calls
Blair
it.
was the architect.
And Blair is the architect.
The architect of a lot of that.
The phrase stakeholder society is what he created. It's basically Blair's in power without being in power. So what he did was all these people who now the chickens have come home to roost, and people are demanding answers from the people that have never had to do that before. That's why you're seeing this kind of stonewalling. That's why you're seeing the delays, the plays with language. It's these people who have done this masterfully since 1997 and stayed in power, and nobody's really paid attention to it, are suddenly having the spotlight shone on them, and they don't like it. So yes, there is an element of votes, but there's also an element of the state, the service. Let's not forget the civil service's unofficial motto is governments come and go, but the service will last forever. You know, this idea of a perpetual government that's not elected is a very real thing in Westminster, and unfortunately they're the ones you've got to go up against. The Labour Party are a big obstacle, but the real thing, the real block here is the blob. And it's a very dangerous thing, I have to admit. I've had to come up against them a few times professionally, and I don't like it. And good luck to the victims, and I mean that. Good luck.
No, Richard, you make such a good point. I mean, actually, when I was thinking about the grooming gang inquiry today and what a shambles it has been, I was thinking, why can't we just have some sort of strong arm, strong man come in, or woman for that matter, but I was thinking a lot about Trump as well in this situation, come in and just do something, because I've been hearing time and time again from lots of victims that this is still going on, and it shouldn't still be going on. And as Peter Blexley said, these inquiries are a great way of just kicking stuff into the grass and making it go away. And unfortunately, at the centre of all of it is votes. And yes, of course, I'm starting to sound like I'm in favour of a dictatorship, which I'm not. But people do just want action, and bureaucracy sort of halts that.
Oh, this country is built on bureaucracy. We have to remember we're not a presidential system. We don't have executive orders. The Prime Minister can't just demand things.
Damn it.
That's the big thing. So when people keep saying, well, Trump can do this, and so Trump can roll back woke, it doesn't work like that over here. Our system is parliamentary. It is very bureaucratic. That's not an accident, by the way, because the thing that will bring down most governments is bureaucracy. The reason digital ID might fail is because it's so bureaucratic that it can't get off the ground. But the thing with the inquiries, and I say this, and I said it earlier, is you've got to start naming people. Institutions is a meaningless phrase. Institutional racism, if you say that to me, my automatic reaction is you're an idiot, because institutions are just street addresses and letterheads. It is people who make decisions. We have to start naming people who should have been doing their job. Those are the people we put handcuffs on, we throw them in a dark hole, and we forget about them. That is how you change the system. You hold the decision makers to account. And we don't do that in this country. I mean, the guy who ran Prevent, who basically allowed the Southport attack to happen...
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times.
3 times.
No, was he? Do you know what he did? He got to resign. He got his pension. He got everything. And yeah, a community was devastated. Families devastated forever. On his watch, he gets to live a nice little life. That is why this country is in the state that it's in. And until we tackle that, nothing is going to change.
Are you vying for Kemi Baden on What's going on with Pete? I'm liking what I'm hearing too. Richard, thank you so much for your call. You made some really good points there. Really appreciate it. Let's talk to Nikki in Bordon.
Hello. Good evening, both.
Hello, how are you?
Listening to Peter and agree with everything he just said.
Thank you.
The man's a legend.
The man is tired and exasperated.
Welcome to the club.
Oh, yeah, and I get it. I am too. Yeah, I'm just going to, if it's okay, have a little bit of a rant.
Oh, go on.
I recommend it. It's very lethargic.
You've come to the right place.
Yeah, so Keir Starmer and his government, they really, truly, I don't believe, care about the British people or our country at all. I feel that they know that they're not going to be voted in again, so they're almost like rats on a sinking ship. I feel they're just going to take everything they can for themselves and the country be damned. They've sold their souls to China, I believe. Starmer and his lot wants an authoritarian regime. I believe we're beginning to see that, a one-party state, apart from trying to look good on the political stage by trying to increase UK growth via Chinese investment, which really isn't on China's agenda at all.
Australia did that, and I can tell you it hasn't ended well for them, Nikki, so you make a really good point there.
And yeah, he's cozied up to China, buying their net zero tech windmills, which probably all have kill switches in them, so we'll probably have all our power cut when we're reliant on wind. He's quite happy to cede ownership to the Chagos Islands, giving China an advantage to spy on us and our US allies. It appears they've given a verbal promise to China to build their embassy in London. Then we have the Muslim extremist threat. So, you know, the appalling situation we're now seeing, continuing to see with the gangs, obviously the Pakistani child rape gangs, let's call it for what it is, as Peter said earlier, and the lack of government progress. And there are, you know, when you look at our 2 largest cities, London and Birmingham, are being controlled, I feel like, the Islamist bad actors. You know, they're looking to impose Islamophobia laws, then there's no freedom of speech really anymore. They're looking to defer the May elections again next year, potentially. And we've got Muslim Islamists already owning parts of London. They have major shares in our UK companies like Sainsbury's and BA. China owns some of our major utility companies like UK Power Network, Northern Water.
Nikki, my God, yes. This is you should be writing a thesis on this. This is really this is
scary
true.
when you look at it all, and all of this is about power and greed. And Starmer and his blob and the left, they hate our Western values, as do China, Iran, and Russia. This is a traitorous and, you know, really corrupt government. My worry is that good people in this country will do nothing, which is all the evil needs to triumph, which is, I know, a very famous quote. But that is my real worry about this, because we're waking up to it. But are people really going to be able to do anything or have the courage to?
It's a famous quote because it rings very true. I mean, I'm all for, you know, my father was an immigrant himself, but all he wanted to do was adopt the values of the Western world when he moved. And I think that is what has been lost on a lot of this unfettered mass migration, where they are able to exist in their own little communities and not learn the language, not learn what Britain stands for. I mean, Britain has so much to be proud of. And the fact that that's kind of just been spaffed away for this air of multiculturalism is a whole other deeper conversation to get into. Do call me if you do want to talk about that. 0344 499 1000. Pete, I'll let you have a quick word before we have to go to Susan Hall.
On a really quick one. One thing I find the most abhorrent thing is when we look at the consequences of the migrant crisis, we have made it harder for the people who want to come here legally, live here, work here, we have made them jump through hoop after hoop after hoop because we have been weak on the illegal people.
Yes.
We have made it impossible, and we don't make people feel welcome here. We have to force them to fill out form after form after form because we have been weak and we have been ineffective at governing our own borders. So the people who are being punished are the good people. So they're not going to come here. Why would they? This is the thing. We keep thinking of everything is like siloed off. It's not. Everything is connected. Everything has consequences, and we're living in the era of those consequences, and everything is coming home to roost. We've run out of grass to kick things into, I'm afraid.
Nikki, thank you so much for your call. And Pete, you're completely right there. After the break, I've got a very special guest, someone I've really, really been wanting to talk to, who's been at the centre of a lot of truth to justice, justice to truth. This is Susan Hall, and we'll be talking to her after the break.
It's always emotion for her, isn't it? And
It is.
And there's a certain arrogance there. There's a certain, how dare you question me? I've campaigned on this issue for many years. Who do you think you are attitude?
I wouldn't be surprised if many of her colleagues actually do begin to think that, I'm not saying she shouldn't go into another job or something, but certainly I think she's been in that now and has obviously lost all respect of those victims who are most important in this.
At the end of the day, they are the only people who matter.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, in this absolutely horrible and shambolic government and situation with the grooming gangs, there have been very, very few strident voices on this. And one of them is Susan Hall. She's the Conservative leader in the London Assembly. Susan, thank you so much for coming on the show and taking the time. I know you're a busy woman these days.
Yeah, but thank you for inviting me.
Well, I really appreciate it because, first of all, I mean, London's grooming gang issue, this has cropped up, and I was quite frankly horrified by reading about children as young as 14 being passed around by builders, then going to ritzy Mayfair hotels to be passed around by people who were staying there and eating there at the fancy restaurants. But then again, I do live in London and I could see how this exact thing could take place. Why has Sadiq Khan, in that now infamous clip of you questioning him, why is he continuing to deny that there is a grooming gang issue in our once great capital city?
Well, I wish I knew. And there was no need to deny it. Right, that clip you're referring to, had he just said, these grooming gangs are abhorrent and we're doing everything we can to see if there are any in London. I mean, I asked him, to be honest with you, expecting him to say something like that, because there is no way that you can have a city with 9 million people with all of these grooming gangs over the rest of the country and not have it in London. So I was quite shocked by his attitude. And then he was doubling down on it. I thought, what on earth is this all about? And well, you've seen the clip, and most people have seen the clip.
Yes.
Nobody can believe it, because it was so dismissive, rude. I think he was trying to get me to say Pakistani grooming gangs.
No, he absolutely was.
Oh, he definitely was.
Yeah. And then he would have called me a racist, because that's what he did all the way through the mayoralty. Anything they could do to call me a racist. I mean, leaflets were going around London with my picture of my face with racist written across it. It was a dreadful time during the mayoralty, because that's all he was throwing at me.
Well, that's his only defence, is that he cries racism. He cries it for absolutely every incompetence that he is responsible for. And I think it's just ridiculous, because actually who you're standing up for are a lot of innocent girls and boys, when I was reading, that have been implicated in this. One absolutely horrendous story of a boy who was 14 and died of AIDS because of how badly he had been treated during this process of being groomed and handed around nightly. And all you're doing is sticking up for little boys like that and little girls, and you get branded a racist and you get dragged through the mud. So that's the ridiculousness of it, Susan. I've got Pete Barnes here, who's eager to get a word in on this, because you've read up a lot about it.
First of all, Susan, thank you for everything that you're doing for this city. I think you're one of the few people I actually trust in the GLA at the moment, because I thought that was an exceptional moment, because I think it showed Sadiq Khan for what he is. This was a decision of his made by ego. He doesn't want to be the mayor that presided over a city where this was going on under his nose, and it will be proven that his organisation or he himself looked the other way. He knows where this is going, and he wants to stop it now. This is that decision, the language that he's using, it is all driven to protect him and protect the Sadiq Khan legacy of him being the first Muslim mayor and the bastion of diversity and all this kind of stuff. That's what he wants. This is not about protecting people. It's not about the capital. It's not about you or me or anybody. It is about Sadiq Khan. The reason this city is in the shape that it is because of his ego, and it has to be called out, and that clip should be shown again and again and again, because how that man can still hold office is beyond understanding to me. Absolutely beyond understanding.
Well, he's acting like a dictator. I mean, I was speaking to John Wedger, who was one of the police officers involved in trying to whistleblow and trying to uncover a lot of this stuff. I'm sure you're familiar with him, Susan. And he was saying to me, any other mayor would step down over this. And I said that to him too. I was like, do you think he'll get through this? Do you think he will? And and he said, yes, of course, because he's so delusional.
But also, he is protected by a media and a system of people around him that will continue to repeat his narratives, that will push his idea out there, and he will go again and again and again. That's not the thing. Sadiq Khan has been very capable of having a network of people to protect him, not the city.
No, but I think it's been blown away now.
I do. I think that's why he's scrambling.
The police have always said that there's nothing going on, nothing to see here. And it makes you wonder just who's involved in all of this. Have they all gone down so far down a path that they then thought, well, we can't turn round? I mean, I was astonished that the commissioner admitted to this on Thursday, that there were all these gangs going on. But I was alerted to it because Len Duval, the leader of the Labour group, had actually asked a question about it. Now, Labour have never asked any questions on these rape gangs, and we were talking about the shutting of front counters. So this had nothing to do with that, and I thought, well, this is a very weird place to put this in, but I'm always happy to talk about it because I'm always happy to constantly ask, because we've got to keep this in the news until something is done about this. And, you know, I rely on the more right-wing newspapers and television to keep this in the news, because we absolutely must, these poor kids. But I was very astonished that he started talking about it and that he was asked by Labour. Because we were calling for, we did a motion on calling for an investigation into this, and the Liberals, the Greens and Labour voted it down in the Assembly. We were the only ones that said we must look into
Shocking.
this. It is shocking.
Yeah, I mean, the entire structure is there because the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime doesn't even have a collated number of child sexual abuse cases. They deliberately don't keep the statistics so they don't have to provide the answers. Again, this is about the system protecting itself. It's about the structures. It's about the people putting these things in place so that they can never be asked the question, so they can never be held accountable for why they're not doing anything.
Well, the Metropolitan Police were doing exactly what's happening with this inquiry. They were conflating it with county lines.
Yeah.
Every time I asked the deputy mayor about it, she was going on about county lines, and I kept saying, no, I am talking about rape gangs. Will you answer me? Do we have rape gangs? And then all the
I mean,
nonsense.
it's the prime example, is the organised criminal exploitation line. That just proves they're wanting to remove the ethnicity, remove the religious aspect, remove the cultural aspects of these crimes and make them just any kind of organised crime.
I do need to read a statement from the Mayor's office. I'll try not to laugh. The Mayor and the Met Police are committed to doing all they can to protect women and children in London from organised criminal and sexual exploitation, including instances of gangs sexually exploiting young women and girls. Well, that's the line they're going for. Susan, anything to say to that? We've got a couple seconds left.
The one thing I will say is after I started asking questions, lots of rape victims contacted me, and I've seen quite a few of them. And I can tell you, not all of the gangs are Pakistani gangs. They're not.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Very many mixed backgrounds. So it would have been wrong for me to have just said, do we have Pakistani gangs? Because London is such a diverse city, as you both know. It's right that, I mean, it's understandable that we do have gangs from different ethnic.
Susan, thank you so much. I've got to cut you off there. I could speak to you all night. After the break, a victim. We will speak to a victim of one of these grooming gangs. She was on the panel, and Kemi had a lot to say about her today in PMQs.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Political Asylum with me, Samara Gill. I'm in for Kev for one night only. Actually, I'll be back Friday, 7 p.m. But Kev is off, 2 nights only. Not here all week. None of that. Whenever they let me out from behind the glass, I am in front here. And if you do want to see more of me, you can watch Triggered on YouTube. That episode has done particularly well this week because I found someone wielding a flag of jihad on the streets of London, which quite frankly sums up a lot of what's going on in this nation right now. And no, it wasn't Pete. It was not Pete. He's here in the studio with me right now. 0344 499 1000 is the number if you want to give us a call in a couple minutes. But I have a very, very important interview. Kemi Badenoch, when I was watching PMQs, was discussing this woman that we're now going to talk to. Let's have a look at what Kemi said.
Elizabeth, who was abused in Rotherham from the age of 14, had this to say, and I quote, "The government has created a toxic environment for survivors." They were looking for answers from the Prime Minister, and what they've heard is Labour MPs saying shame at their words. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the Safeguarding Minister said Elizabeth was wrong. Who should we believe? The Prime Minister's Safeguarding Minister or Elizabeth?
Well, that was Elizabeth there, and she does go by the name Elizabeth. She is anonymous. Why is she anonymous? Because a lot of these grooming gangs still operate in the towns. I've had a lot of victims speak to me and say that they can't even do their weekly shop without coming face to face with someone that abused them, which quite frankly is ridiculous, and no 6-year inquiry or however long an inquiry would take would amend that. So let's talk to Elizabeth now. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me on.
We really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I mean, at least someone like Kemi Badenoch is giving you a platform and sort of taking Starmer to task and saying, hey, these are the victims at the heart of your shambolic inquiry. How do you feel about it? I mean, you were on the inquiry. You've now backed out, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? What was that decision based on?
Well, I didn't take the decision very lightly, you know. It was making me feel quite uncomfortable. Due to things like selective, like narratives, being suppressed was a huge one for me as well. And towards the end, I had a real fear that if I stayed on there and I was silent to what I was seeing, that I'd actually be complicit in essentially silencing the victims in the country. And that's something I don't stand by. I've campaigned for a lot of years and I stand for truth and accountability, and it'd have been really wrong for me to do that.
A lot of people, including Ali Reynolds, who I'm sure you're familiar with, she's another survivor of the grooming gangs, thought that under this Labour inquiry, she was basically getting re-traumatised. Would you say that that was sort of the case? I mean, when I hear about silencing, you guys being treated like little girls who don't know anything, that's again Ali's words. What would you say to that?
I wouldn't say I was re-traumatised. I was...
Well, of course, it's not at that level, but to be dismissed by the government.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's something along the years that I have seen quite a lot. So you become really desensitised and negative towards the processes. I actually thought with the public pressure that had appeared this year, and them finally caving in and saying, yeah, you can have the national inquiry, that they would have took it a little bit more seriously. But when they're actually telling you from the start, you can't say anything out of these meetings, you don't talk to the media, you don't, we had to sign confidentiality agreements and things like that. That's not transparent, and that's not doing the best for the victims either. It applies unnecessary pressure.
And what would you say to Jess Phillips right now if you had the opportunity? I mean, she was absolutely horrendous, to be honest, in the House of Commons yesterday when she made that speech. I mean, she was someone who, to give her credit, she used to be a real champion of women's rights and women's safety. And how far she's fallen under this government is quite frankly egregious. I mean, what would you say to her?
Absolutely. She's let herself down because she, before they got into being government, she did good work. You know, if anybody around the survivors movement, they'd always go to Jess Phillips for advice and things like that. Yesterday were chaotic and bad behaviour again. And what I'd say to her is, if you're not up to the job and you don't want to stand up for us, you don't want to be a voice for us, you don't want to do your job, then do the right thing and resign.
Agreed.
Well, totally. It feels like she's actually commandeering to Keir Starmer, and she's getting almost controlled by him, a man, to do exactly what he wants her to do, because as I said, there is a real change in her personality, and I feel like she's probably someone you thought you could have trusted, and now she's gone and thrown her entire reputation down the drain in order to defend him like some sort of senseless puppet. I mean, Elizabeth, sorry to get into this, and I know it's very tricky, but just for the audience to know, what exactly did you face? I know you were around 13 or 14 when you started getting groomed by these grooming gangs. Could you tell us just a little bit about that? Because I feel like it always gets lost in this Westminster politic, and at the heart of it are victims like you.
Absolutely. So my abuse started when I was around 14. It was facilitated by a woman that was already known to the authorities for several years before me. She had 9 different aliases. You know, there was really high intelligence on her, not just with South Yorkshire Police, but with Rotherham Borough Council as well.
She was a Muslim woman, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, who was running this sort of ring, almost like a Ghislaine Maxwell type of situation, only because I know Prince Andrew's been in the news quite a lot, that just to give the audience a sort of view of that. So, yeah, so she was running this ring and she was abusing you in that way.
Yep, and she groomed me, and I ended up being locked in her property for 10 weeks. During that 10 weeks, she introduced me to, obviously, the men that had carried out the abuse. My mum and dad had reported me missing over 200 times, constantly on the phone in 10 weeks. The only person during that period of that 10 weeks, obviously the abuse went on longer than the 10 weeks, but during that 10 weeks, the only adult, even though there was intelligence there, that faced any consequences was my dad. He was arrested twice, trying to get me out of the property.
Time and time again, they continue to go after the victims and not the perpetrators. I feel like we've seen this when we see victims come out. I mean, Ellie Reynolds was also implicated when she tried to complain. They actually criminalised her. And to hear that they called 200 times to say that you were missing and didn't do anything is absolutely egregious. I've got Pete Barnes here. He's in the studio with me. He's a political strategist, but he's also very much read up on this. I mean, Pete, what do you have to say to that?
Can I just say, Elizabeth, you're an incredible woman, and we need more people like you in this country. What I will say, lack of transparency led to 1,400 children abused, trafficked, beaten, and the most horrific things ever. For the government to impose non-disclosure agreements on victims is abhorrent, morally repugnant, and just absolutely beyond the pale. Jess Phillips is a national disgrace and should resign immediately. She did do good work. She has ruined that. This was her moment to actually put victims first. She's failed them. Fundamentally, she's failed them. This inquiry was doomed from the start because they didn't want it. And I'm sorry, how this woman can stand there and say that she's still doing everything she can do. I'm sorry. Go. Leave now. Save the country. Any more of your horror, because it is just abhorrent. What I will say, though, is the problem of the inquiry is it's never going to please everybody, but we have to define what it is so then everybody's on the same page. Is it about learning lessons? Is it about holding people accountable? Is it about this? Because it's so sprawling, it's letting everybody down in different ways. It is the lack of definition because the government doesn't want the clarity. It's allowed it to kind of get out of control because nobody's spearheading it. I mean, we've had another guy resign as well as one of the advisors on this committee and all the rest of it. I mean, it's nonsense. That we're 4 months after the announcement, we don't even have a chair. Can't even decide if it's going to be judge-led.
Well, exactly.
It is astronomical incompetence, and it is kids. And more importantly, whilst the Rotherham incident is historical, it is going on now. It is still happening right now. That has to be remembered, and I give up with it. I'm sorry, I have no confidence in this at all.
Elizabeth, you go by a pseudonym, a fake name, because there are still perpetrators out there. And do you still see them from time to time? Is that why you continue to go under an alias?
Absolutely. You know, Rotherham's a small town. We live on top of each other. And yeah, it is for safety reasons. It's kind of my safety net.
And, you know, Labour bang on about caring about the working class. I know that you were a working class girl. You were absolutely hard done by, and you were groomed. And then this is how Labour, the party that always claims that they're going to save the working class, this is what they do. They throw it in your face. I mean, is there anything you would say to Keir Starmer if you had a direct line to him right now?
I'd basically say sort himself out, but he's not going to do that. You know, he's got absolutely no regards or any empathy towards us at all. Because if he had, you know, this started in January when he could have done something in January, but instead he essentially made us beg. And if it wasn't for the people like Elon Musk and the media, you know, we wouldn't be at this point. We wouldn't be. He had to back down.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point. It is the backing down. How is a government not on the side of victims in this? How? Do they have to be? But they have to be.
Because honestly, Pete, it was an institutional cover-up. When I hear about how the police...
Stop saying institutional. It is people. People covered this up. It is not institutions. That is vague. Specifics. We need to name the names. And that's
exactly.
So important
when you think about, I mean, I was just reading a story yesterday where a social worker attended the wedding of one of the grooming gang victims. I mean, it's insane. And that's when I say institutional, you're right, it is too vague and you need to be specific. And what the inquiry clearly isn't doing is specific. I mean, what were some of the things they were making you do within the inquiry that you had an issue with, Elizabeth?
Staying quiet, because I believe that it should be transparent and the public should know exactly what's going on. I had a problem with how they were directing the chairperson.
Right.
Police officers and social workers should not be anywhere near this.
Agreed.
Yeah, I just feel that we should have had a lot more say, and I feel like it were predetermined and they already had the outcome of it. And very quickly I felt...
Please, take your time, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I quickly felt and understood that we was a tick box exercise to say, you know, we've spoken to these survivors, what more do you want us to do?
Can I just say that there is the really important bit as to why it is kind of so chaotic is because they want this to be about cuts. They want the result of this has to be about they didn't have the resources and the personnel to protect people because of austerity, because of cuts made by the previous government. We didn't have the resources to protect people at that time. That is the narrative they need this to be. So they're doing everything they can do to absolve themselves of accountability, but also make sure that they can just paper over it. And that is why it is so important that we don't allow that to happen, because as I say, it's still going on now. There are still victims out there we don't know about, and there's people at risk right now, and this government is allowing that to continue.
It's an insult, and it's justice delayed, meaning justice denied in this problem. And I genuinely think that the Labour government doesn't care, and it's come out within this inquiry, hearing Elizabeth say that they already had a desired outcome, and all they wanted was for her to be a box-ticking exercise. It really, really pains me to think that all these girls wanted, they were screaming out for an inquiry, and they're not going to get, I mean, do you think this inquiry will even go forward? They can't find someone to even chair it, let alone other people to be involved. Elizabeth, that was for you. No worries. Sorry, this three-way conversation is
It's gone into chaos. You know, the Home Office is in chaos about it.
Yes.
Jess Phillips is. Well, I don't know what's happened to her in the last couple of days, but she's gone into chaos. You know.
Exactly. I just don't know if a Labour government will get this through.
I don't know if any government will get it through. I think that's the bigger problem, realistically, because as I said, it's not really the politicians that have got the skin in the game in this one. It's the blob. It's the people behind the scenes, the people that move in the shadows that you don't know exist. But let me tell you, there's a lot of panicking people in Westminster right now, and they're doing their very best to muddy the waters in this. And this is what Elizabeth has rightly spotted. I mean, Jim Gimble, he's the guy that stepped down, has said... Jim Gamble, he's the guy that said it's because of the politics. Now, I have a big problem with people who are champions of things stepping away, because you should fight for things you believe in. But if they're stepping away and saying, this isn't worth it, this isn't the right thing to do, you should pay attention to it.
Elizabeth, what does justice look like for you? Because at the moment, quite frankly, this doesn't look like anything close to it.
No. Before, it had been a good judicial process, you know, getting convictions and then probably walking away. But during my campaigning and stuff, and the treatment that we still receive now of police officers and people in authority, the attitudes are the same, has made me continue to become a campaigner. And now I want to see accountability. I want to see truth. I want to see every single victim be vindicated in this country, including their parents that looked after the children and that did everything possible. And I want to be able to say, you know what, I had a bad experience, I put it into good experience, and I've helped future children. That's what justice looked like to me.
And Elizabeth, you are doing that. And I actually think to step away from this is a very, very courageous move that only someone with a real tenacity and strength would actually be able to do, because you're dealing with government institutions there. Kemi Badenoch saying your name in PMQs today, that shows that you're actually making a difference. And I think to stick by it wouldn't have been, to be bowing down to whatever Labour's telling you to do, would actually have been the wrong move. So I think you are one of the strongest women that I know and that I've had the pleasure of talking to. I've heard other interviews with you, and I just think that you're doing a world of good for this. And at least you can sleep at night knowing that you're not one of these people that's trying to put words into your mouth about what the inquiry should and shouldn't be and who should be held accountable. At the end of the day, it was majority Pakistani Muslim rape gangs that were operating in this country, and if Labour wants to sort of cover that up or want some sort of different definition of what was going on, that's on them. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything, are you at least, I mean, I remember hearing from you last time and you said, you know, it's difficult to go out. I don't feel like I have my life back. And it just broke my heart. Have you progressed a little bit in sort of your healing process?
Yeah, I'm a lot better these days. I'm just busy all the time, to be honest. And
that's the best method, I can tell you.
Trying to make a difference.
You're busy saving the world and the country, it seems, and we thank you for it. Elizabeth, thank you so much. You're a national hero in our eyes. Really appreciate you talking to us. That's Elizabeth. She has stepped away in a very courageous move and says that Jess Phillips ought to step down. Very interesting stuff. I mean, when you look at the news cycle at the moment, time and time again, it's working class girls that have been put on the absolute back foot of this country, whether it's the Jeffrey Epstein debacle with Prince Andrew, allegedly abusing a working class girl, Virginia Giuffre, whether it's Elizabeth, whether it's Ellie Reynolds. they're constantly being put last. And I think that them standing up and saying, I've had enough, writing the book, leaving the panel, is a sign and a little glimmer of hope. But that trauma will always still be there. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Please get your calls in. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about anything. Yeah. Pete and I are here for the next 40 minutes taking all your calls. Be right back after the break.
I remember talking to Matt Hancock at the time, who was the health secretary, and I said, Matt, who is in danger, who is dying? Why don't you just protect the elderly and the vulnerable and let everybody else get on with it? Locking up all these youngsters was insane, and I believe that this is a ticking time bomb for society to be picking up the pieces in many months and years to come. You know, the mental health issues that we really haven't even begun to scratch the surface of, I think you can directly link back to the closing of the schools.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, the floor is completely open to you. I love having almost like a sort of cathartic just rant about the day's news with the callers, with the viewers of this show. You make this all happen. So do call in 0344 499 1000. Haven't got many phone lines. I've got one phone line. So if you can get in and get your call in, then please do. So Mick Lawton has said, I'd love to see Maggie Oliver from the UK get to the rape gang inquiry done. Yes, that is, I mean, Maggie Oliver is in God's word.
She said she doesn't believe in the inquiry anyway, right from the get-go.
I mean,
one of the biggest campaigners.
I want people behind bars. I don't need dot points on a piece of paper like Labour wants.
I remember I sat here with Kevin and I said, people don't need lessons learned. They need handcuffs and they need perp walks and they need people thrown in dark holes and forgotten about.
I remember that.
That is what this country needs, and it is the only way to get it back on track. We live in a consequence-free society, and that this is what happens when, you know, we don't hold those who look the other way. It was their duty to protect these kids. That's the point. It was their job to protect the kids, and they didn't. That is a failure. and unfortunately, it's the victims that have paid the consequences for it.
Well, we're run by a human rights lawyer,
Well,
so that's
ironic
never going to
that, isn't
happen, at least under this current government, or that I can see. I mean, he's all empty platitudes, that man. Mark Smith says, good evening. To the answer to everything is this, national strike. We stop earning money for the government taxes. We don't work again until they have no money for anything, hotels, benefits, or illegal migrants, etc.
We don't have any money anyway.
We actually, Rachel Reeves will tell you that we've got absolutely no money in the kitty, Mark, and she'll keep taxing us until she gets her shekels that she wants. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, that woman. I do feel like at the end of the day, I'm seeing my paycheck diminish. Not that I've got anything, but
I'm not gonna lie.
everyone, the people who work are seeing less and less of their money. The millionaires are leaving. Good luck, Rachel.
Yeah, I've got to say, this is the only time since I was like a very small child I've actually been afraid of Halloween, because what genius thought to have the budget on Halloween, my lord. The stupidity of that move. But yeah, I'm genuinely terrified, and I think we all should be.
Nicola says, I was homeless in Tower Hamlets in the 1990s. As a girl, I was groomed from the age of 12 by a group of Bengali men. My life has been ruined, and I've seen kids taken into care, and they now live on the streets. Well, you're right. It's this cycle of abuse that is obviously perpetuated, and the more and more we faff on with these inquiries that don't amount to a hill of beans, the more and more this continues to happen. And even when you do have kids, they then get subject to being groomed and abused, and it's just this horrendous national disgrace cycle that Starmer is absolutely presiding over. Let's talk to Sean in Colchester. Sean, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. What did you want to say to Pete and I? Me and Pete.
I picked my. I've got a teenage daughter, secondary school in Colchester.
Right.
And she came home from school and she was telling me about one of her lessons today, which I found absolutely shocking. I don't know how to deal with it, really.
Right. So she came out of the lesson because it was too so she got sent out? Is that what happened?
She had a lesson today. And when she came home from school, she was telling me about an hour-long lesson she had about politics at school.
Oh, here we go.
I mean, that's just dangerous as a starting sentence in this country.
So it was a creative media lesson.
Okay.
There was on the whiteboard. I've got a picture of it here. So on the whiteboard, he had a left and a right, and above the left he had Liberal progress, and on the right he had Conservative no progress. And he also was talking about how
sort of Orwellian.
He disliked Trump. He disliked Trump.
Like most people in the education industry.
Yeah, and he was putting images up of Elon Musk saying he was doing Nazi salutes.
Which wasn't true. It ended up not being true. Now this man's just teaching lies to the students.
Yeah, and he said he was saying if Nigel Farage became PM, he would leave the country.
That might be the reason to vote for him.
Yeah, honestly, that sounds like a good thing, Sean.
I mean, I'm hardly the Farage fan, but even I think I might vote for him based on that, to get that person out of our education system.
But you know what? I listened to this and I'm hardly even surprised,
Sean.
That's the thing. Because, honestly, I mean, even when I was in school, which was a really, really long time ago, because I'm super old, there was this real left-wing ideology that was absolutely being pushed at us. And I remember constantly being brought into the principal's office because I'd said something that was offensive or anything, and it genuinely wasn't like, I can tell you, I wasn't some sort of 12-year-old fascist or anything, but it was rife at the time, and I feel really bad because educational institutions like universities, like schools, they should be places for free speech and for development. And I think once we start going into this left is right, right is bad type of Orwellian, thought police, then we really start to lose a lot of our critical thinking as a nation, and we just become a sort of bunch of loonies who believe in one thing.
And that's what I've always tried to teach my children, to think critically. You know, criticise everything.
Yeah.
Question everything.
Totally.
But-
That's a Western, that is a Western ideology. That's what the West is built on, is debate,
The
discussion.
basis of our entire society.
We're losing it, Sean.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I disagree with what she's been taught at school. But I don't know how I should proceed with.
Pete, have you got any advice?
I would go straight to the governors of the school with the photographs and get your daughter to write everything down that happened in this lesson. And if you could get other kids from the class, you go to the governors. The governors have a responsibility to actually ensure the standards of education in that school. This is a failure of the school, so therefore it's a failure on the governors. It's a legal responsibility. They have to act.
It's difficult though, because I can imagine that they would even be quite woke.
So look at the incident with Cherry Tree Lane School.
Yes, I was there this weekend.
The governors have a responsibility to act. They haven't acted. So this is where you think we have to keep demanding it. We shouldn't have to, but we have to. And this is the thing. Too many good people stop demanding answers and give up. We have to keep fighting.
Well, that girl that I spoke, that girl that I spoke to, she hadn't been to school in 3 weeks because she was getting called a racist and far right, and she was getting bullied about it. And I think that is the state of the nation at the moment, where you start getting little girls being bullied out of school just for having an alternate view.
It does seem that the left are supposed to be tolerant of the most intolerant people.
Yeah, it's called Newspeak. George Orwell wrote about it.
Yes.
Everything is the inverse of what it is. So inclusion means exclusion. You know, this kind of diversity means single thought. It's used by totalitarian governments. It's very effective because we do it naturally all the time. Because it's reinforced in the media, or like that diversity is our strength. The most perverse one: all other forms of hate after an anti-Semitic incident. We condemn all of this anti-Semitic incident and all other forms of hate. You know, we never really say certain things, and it's infuriating.
Well, they always will use these dark and insidious ideologies like extreme left-wingism, but also the trans ideology.
Oh, yeah.
They all use schools because they're full of impressionable children. I mean, I can't go on the tube without seeing a child who's got a blazer that's riddled with a pro-Palestine, a pro-trans flag, a pro-this, a pro-that, a pro-net zero environment. And we wonder why our kids are filled with anxiety. It's because they think the world has burnt down or is going to burn down in the coming days, and that everyone's at each other, and it's just not the case. So Sean, thank God for parents like you. I really appreciate you at least standing up for your daughter, and just tell her to speak her mind, and she'll probably be way more successful in the future than any of those people that are just blindly pledging allegiance to this psycho lefty teacher. Thank you, Sean, for coming on the show.
Yeah, if you look at things like the Khmer Rouge, for example, they turned kids against their parents.
Yeah,
and they turned they turned the kids into a kind of another level of Stasi, basically.
Yeah, when you think about Hitler Youth, I mean, I'm not comparing this situation
not at all.
to
But
the
it is
Hitler
the
Youth.
basis and the foundations of you use the younger generation to kind of spread the message out.
Of course,
and it's insidious what's happening, and teachers like that have no right being there. And teachers, as a profession, should call out bad actors. It's up to the teachers' unions to stamp this out just as much as everybody else.
Let's talk to Grace in London. Grace, welcome to the show. You want to talk about the burqa. It is a complicated issue. I've got that on your note there.
Yeah, it is, because on the one hand, we don't really want to tell people that they can't wear something. And I hate people seeing my face. So if someone else wanted to cover up their face, I kind of feel like they should have the right to do that. But I'm not sure to what extent people who do wear it, and very few people actually do. Most Muslim women wear hijabs, if anything, rather than...
I don't think that's right. I mean, as someone who lives in London, and I don't want to make this too much of a London-centric show, because across the country people do experience this, but I can't walk down the street without seeing someone in one.
Well, that might depend on where in London you are, I guess, because I don't see
That's
them all
half
often.
the problem.
But
Sorry
I don't
to interrupt, Grace. I think that's a huge problem. that, you know, you can't walk into certain parts of London. That phrase shouldn't exist. You know, this idea that, you know, this is that community, that's that community, that's part of the problem.
Very siloed.
I'm with you on this. I don't like telling people what they can and can't do. I do, but, you know, as a government, it shouldn't thing. But I like how Meloni brought this in Italy. She brought this in as cultural crimes as well. She went after female genital mutilation. She made the mosques open up where the funding is coming from. The problem is we hyper-focus on the burqa and we forget everything else around it. What Meloni did was quite smart and brought it in as a package, a deal, basically. And I think that's the way to do it.
I'd want to talk to women who do wear it about why they choose to wear it, because I think that's
Can
really
tell you why,
fundamental.
because their husbands tell them most of the time.
That's my suspicion. If it were the case that they were choosing to wear it because they genuinely felt that it was the right thing to do or they really wanted to, then that'd be one thing. But I suspect that many are coerced into it. At the same time, I worry that if people were stopped from wearing it, then their controlling husbands might just say you can't go out the house at all.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
I've heard a lot of Muslim men defending it.
Yeah.
Well, of course, but you know...
You wouldn't hear from the Muslim women. That's the problem, isn't
well,
it?
Grace, this actually goes to a really interesting point, and I think basically, I think that we should ban the burqa because it would get rid of a lot of these people that have this extreme ideology. I mean, I don't know if I want to live in a country where a man is controlling if a woman can leave their house or not. And if we banned the burqa, then we would say to those people, hey, get with the program, get with British values, or get out. And I think that would be a good sort of... that would be a good thing to happen because of a policy change, in my opinion. Just because I don't want people acting in their siloed communities. I want people all out there conversing together, being able to see each other face to face. This is what Britain is about.
But I think you can't necessarily change the ideology by stopping them from wearing it.
Yes.
Like I say, I'd want to talk to people about why they wear it because a lot of people are kind of born into Islam. Now, I was born into a Christian family, but I didn't actually believe it until I was older and I looked at the evidence, and then I chose to believe it for myself based on the evidence. So I'd want to talk to Muslim women about what has led them to feel that they should wear it and try and discern to what extent people are being coerced, because that's really concerning. I also worry about the fact that it is essentially sending the message that a woman's face is inherently a sexual thing.
Yes.
You know, I heard some Muslim men defending it on the radio yesterday, and they would say, well, a woman just wants to keep herself for her husband. And I'm thinking, but a woman's face should not be an excuse for a man to think that a woman is leading him on. It's kind of saying, and I have heard some people say, I don't know how accurate this is, but that there are some men who think that if a woman isn't wearing it, then she's up for it. She's promiscuous. And if we allow lots of people to wear it, then some men might think, well, the other women who aren't wearing it are clearly just, up for it. And so I worry about the message it sends to men that women's appearance is in itself something that makes them, it gives them an excuse.
Yeah, I mean, I know some women that do love. I don't know some women that love wearing it, but I do know of. I mean, my grandfather actually taught an art class that was specifically for burqa wearers. Yes, this is the liberal family that I come from. This is why I turned into the way I am.
We're going to have to talk.
But
That's a story and a half.
So that's a whole other headline there. But he was actually telling me, because I had a lot of questions, he told me that they all took them off and revealed underneath beautiful, plastic surgery faces and all this designer gear that they'd been hiding under the burqas. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is so weird. Like, I wouldn't have expected that. And they say that stuff like lingerie sales are the highest in the Middle East. Like, so there's this duplicitous society that we're dealing with here. And I do just want to say the national security thing, that's the biggest risk for me, because even in Australia, we had a politician that wore a full burqa into Parliament, wasn't questioned in any which way who she was the entire time. She just walked through. And when we see more and more cases of extreme Islamism in the UK, I do start to think maybe we need to be a little bit more precautious with that sort of thing. I mean, face coverings in general, not a fan of them.
Yeah, can I just say, I think, Grace, you make a really, really important point here, is actually, if you look at places like Austria, France and Portugal, where they've banned it outright, they made the ban a national rallying cry within the non-Muslim community. What they've actually done is made it more kind of Islamic, if you like, for want of a better phrase. In other words, they've made it a symbol, and because once people have a symbol, they have a cause, and that has kind of developed a kind of more dangerous society within those nations. So we have to be careful about outright bans. How it's brought in is so important. This is why this kind of flat out just bull in a china shop technique on this has proven not to work. We can learn from other countries, and if we do decide to do it, we should do it smarter. And this is my big concern. People just ban it, and I was like, no, you can't do that because it makes it worse.
I think just ban it, but we've got so many calls to get to, and I'm loving them way too much. Thank you, Grace, for your insight on that. Really appreciate it. 0344 499 1000 is the number. We're going to get to more of your calls after this break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to take more of your calls in just a second. Stephen says, sorry, read the wrong message there. Regarding the immigrant who was deported under the ludicrous one-in, one-out scheme, then made a return trip back across the UK channel. I really can't read that without, without making a face. The real question should be, where did this migrant get the money for the second trip across the channel? It's very clear that these migrant boat crossings are being funded by some wealthy NGOs. That's from David in South Wales.
They're being funded by places like Iran. They're being funded by places like Russia. This is why it is already a national security crisis. We have MI6 and MI5 and national crime agencies reports after report after report that this is being kind of exacerbated and fed by foreign actors. This is not the migrant crisis. This is a kind of proxy war, for want of a better phrase.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I think we definitely, there is a proxy war going on, but then there's also the fact that these migrants do work illegal jobs, cash in hand. They want to get back over here, and they do have this sort of might for being...
It's also modern slavery, because what happens is you work for us till you pay off the debt.
Well, precisely. There's also that. So when Keir Starmer talks about smash the gangs, which is something we haven't heard in a while, I do laugh because I go, mate, it's a global
Yeah.
Very, very interwebby, people trafficking, very insidious, dark thing that you think that you can just smash. No, 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 no. This is country after country, lots of fingers in
It's
lots
also
of pies.
non-state actors, so that's the
Yes.
big problem, because they're moving between different nations, different jurisdictions.
Of course they are.
You know, it's also being funded by a lot of the kind of narco-terrorist groups.
Yes.
It's being funded by Islamic terrorist groups because it causes chaos, and these organisations make money on the chaos. The idea of smashing the gangs was right in principle in terms of going after it in a law way, but the idea that one country could make an ounce of difference, particularly Keir Starmer, was just laughable.
No, you're right. Countries like Iran and Russia, it's in their interest to change the fabric of this nation. They want us to all be fighting with each other and all be at odds. Would you believe it? Let's talk to Sean in the Isle of Wight. Hi, Sean. Welcome to the show.
Hi, you right?
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine, yeah. Phoning up about the burqa and any face coverings I think should be made illegal.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering, what would be the repercussions if a man was to walk out of his house with a white sheet over him and a white painted hat with just his eyes showing and walk down the road dressed up like somebody at the KKK? Would that be illegal?
I mean, I think, yeah, that would be because it kind of represents a terrorist organisation known as the KKK. So I reckon, yes, it would be.
But isn't that the same thing? It's a face covering that's showing something that doesn't fit in with the culture.
I mean, Islam isn't a terrorist organisation. No. It's the extreme element of it that really does get on people's nerves here in the West.
I will say, actually, that the thing that I think really gets people about the burqa is it is a very physical representation of a different culture.
Yes.
So, you know, the cross, is a very small part of jewellery. You know, it's not as kind of in your face, and there's a very distinct
I find it very confronting.
Yeah,
Every time I see one, I do get confronted quite a bit by the anonymity of it, the fact that I don't know who's under there. So in a way, yes, Sean, you do make a good point that you know, if someone was to put a sheet over their head, they would also be anonymous too. We wouldn't know who they are. And I think it's that sense of anonymity that I've really got a problem with.
Yeah, and also, if we told the guy with the sheet to take it off, well, you wouldn't be called Islamophobic, you won't be called racist. You know, there is the extra connotation to all of this, that if you start bringing this up, you're the bad person. For, you know, maybe wondering, is the person under that the person under that?
Sean, thanks so much for calling in. Let's go to Tracy in Middlesbrough. Tracy, what did you want to say?
Hi. I'd just like to say about the burqa. Basically, when you see a woman with a burqa, well, I always look at the feet, me see whether it's a man or female, actually. That's what I do. Because you don't know. But when you see a little, like, our kids growing up in this country right now, and you have a balaclava on, they're called a thug.
Yeah, I think this is the big problem, isn't it? Is that it is the two-tier society. It is one rule for one rule for another. One is treated with privilege, one is treated as the problem. And when you keep fostering that, and you keep reinforcing it with example after example, but then deny any of it's happening, this what Peter Bellexi was talking about, this kind of low-trust society, it's just common sense.
What I don't like is seeing... sorry, Tracy.
And the way like balaclavas, they're called thugs. But if you see like somebody with a burqa on, you're not allowed to say nothing.
Well, you're right, and I don't like any of it. I hate seeing it. Someone got on my train with a balaclava on last night, and I freaked out. I wanted to get straight off because I just thought, I have no idea who you are. This is often associated with people who are shoplifting.
And look at the feet.
Yeah,
is it a man or a woman?
It was a man. Yeah, exactly. We don't know. And even with the burqa, sometimes we wouldn't know if it was a man or a woman. I mean, you could be a man and put that on and walk out into the street. And you're right, not be questioned, Tracy. And I think that is the safety element that people are really pushing on for this.
Well, and that's it. I'd like to say, why doesn't Keir Starmer get some of them off the boat to live in his house for a week or two?
The issue is on the boats, they're usually young men who don't wear burqas.
I wouldn't inflict that. I wouldn't inflict that on people.
Everything is okay. Put him in his house for a week or two.
Yeah, well, it's not happening in Islington, is it? I mean, it's not happening in Camden.
Just like to say about the youth growing up now, this is like Britain, and they're growing up and they have balaclavas and they ride about on push bikes and whatever, and everyone calls them thugs. But
No,
it's
Tracy.
okay to watch these people walking about.
You make such a good point, genuinely. Yeah, I think we should ban it too. You're right, and it's a safety issue at this point.
The thing.
So,
I was
Tracy,
always,
thank
sorry.
you. Oh, yes, no, Pete, please.
I was always very, very against the ban. I thought it was very illiberal. We are now at this point in our society where it is now necessary. And that's the point. That's the thing for me now. It's like, I was against it. We've had so many instances, we've got so many problems that this has now become necessary because we haven't done any other integration factors at all. You don't have to speak English. I mean, I hope that was an idea that you had an integration policy without speaking the same language.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for your call. Joe says, I'm sorry, but I think Susan Hall has been given a little too much credit. That infamous clip with Khan, where she lost her nerve and didn't say the words of fear for being called a racist by her own admission. And that's why she's now keen to say that she couldn't say that because there were other ethnicities involved. I'm sorry, this is a cop-out. And she stopped Khan from answering that day.
No,
I don't know. That's from Joe in Saudi Arabia.
If she'd have said that, Khan's immediate response would have been racist. And he would have been...
It would have been a smear campaign.
It would have been a smear. You would have fed his narrative.
Yeah.
Susan was right to hold back and to call him out on what he was trying to do. We might really want to be gung-ho on this, but if we overshoot and we get it wrong, the whole thing, the whole narrative, the shifting of the Overton window goes away. This is why I don't like they're eating the swans and the goose stories and all the rest of it. We have the crime statistics. We have the solid data. Keep ploughing ahead on the straight path. Don't play their game. Call it out when you see it and hold your nerve. We're so close to seeing actual change on this. My fear is one mistake and it all comes crumbling down.
Yeah, I think Susan was actually playing the long game with that because she does want justice for those victims and she doesn't want it to turn into a smear campaign about her, and it would have. It genuinely would have, and she knew that. So I do agree with you. I also think in terms of the London grooming gangs, and I just spoke at length with some of the coppers involved, it's very multicultural. I mean, there's definitely a Pakistani and Islamic element, especially to do with a lot of those ritzy high-end hotels and restaurants and shisha bars that are being involved in it. But there's a lot of, say, Polish builders that were also using those services, and a lot of, because London is inherently multicultural, so you can't really get away from that. But I think Susan was playing her cards right, Joe, but you're entitled to that opinion. Where is that message Well, let's just go to Herbie in Harrow. Herbie, welcome to the show. What did you want to say to me and Pete?
Good evening. What I want to say, hello, Control Britain, goodbye, people's freedom and independence with the ID card.
Yeah.
What more could you ask for? Talk about control freaking. God, dear, oh dear, they're starting from the very top, aren't they?
I think the worst thing is using veterans for it. As a kind of test pilot. I think that is actually disgraceful. The idea that we'll help us keep a track. I'm sorry, there are military IDs, there's already veterans identifications, there's already all of these systems. It is an excuse to bring in more control later down the line in areas. Lisa Nandy let the cat out of the bag the day before the policy announcement on Question Time. She said it'll be for booking appointments, it'll be for education. And Keir Starmer the next day got up and said it's just for work. But my God, they can't even keep to a message calendar, this lot. It's pathetic.
Totally. Herbie, you make a really good point. I mean, I made this on my other show, Triggered, the other day, where I said, I don't want someone who calls someone like Farage flirting with the Hitler Youth and loves to tar reform with the brush of fascist and racist. I don't want them controlling my digital ID. I mean, this is the government whose power would be in their hands if they had this. I mean, it did say, apparently it won't be put into place until 2029, and then knowing how this government gets stuff going, it probably won't even be in place until then.
This is the point. Sorry to interrupt. This is the point. There's already, and the gentleman on Twitter was perfectly right, there's already little bits of the pilot scheme, and there's a pilot scheme, and there's a pilot scheme. So actually, all they need to do is codify it into one thing. That's what they do. So they'll say, oh, it's not put into place by name, by practicality, it's already there.
Well, we already had Keir Starmer, he's gone, oh, it's about illegal immigration. Give me a break. I mean, the thing is, that's what he's saying to his audience here. But when he went over to India, he was saying some very different things about the implication of the digital ID, like the fact that it might be used to control our taxes. So what happens if I don't pay the right amount of tax? Am I then going to get refused an NHS appointment? I mean, this really has a trickle-down effect, and you're right to stand up against it, Herbie.
Yeah, but the thing is that the military had their own ID tags anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they have it in case they get shot or whatever. So they got ID tags. You know, this government is going against us all the way. They want to control us. Why don't they stand up and say, we are control freaks and we're going to run your life for you because you can't run it yourself?
Because they're scared of us.
That's what they're saying.
They're scared of us. That's what they are.
Yeah.
They're scared of the truth coming out, the fact that they're the ones responsible for everything that's been going wrong. Because for a long time, the country got very comfortable with being spoon-fed at education. You know, everything went on credit and all the rest of it, and they got to kind of build these structures behind the scenes. And the masses were given the fodder to what they would give, the red meat and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
This is the reality of it, and this is why I do say the public has a little bit of blame in this, because we took our eye off the ball. Now, politicians did all the heavy lifting, but there is a lot of blame to go around on this, and it's not this isn't like an inevitable. We can pull a lot of this back.
Herbie, thank you. No, thank you for your call. Steve Riley says, hi, Samara. Regarding digital ID, they're going to plough ahead regardless of what the public thinks and wants. This is not a Labour government idea. It's a global directive. And it would have been there even if Sunak was still Prime Minister, in my opinion, of course. That's Steve being careful with his choice of words because he thinks he's being monitored. Do we have time for Ian? Oh, I don't think so. Ian, please call either Petri Hoskin, who is on 11 till 1 a.m., or actually, no, Harry doesn't take calls. No, he's over in the US. Harry Cole will be 10 to 11, and then Petri Hoskin, of course. So do call in for that show. She does a great round of calls. It's been a great one. Pete, thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah. Couldn't have done it without you. You're an absolute legend. He'll be back here Friday, and he'll be back here tomorrow, as well. He's a friend of the station. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.